The next session will be follow-up and quick updates, and Jacob is the facilitator.
Can you add me as a panelist?
Oh, right. Sorry.
I keep myself muted and just speak through this. Right?
Yes, you can speak through the microphone.
Alrighty. So the purpose of this is just to give some updates on things that were discussed from the last Collab Summit that have and what movement there has been since there. The first one for it was the userland migrations that we proposed there, and it got started. The first automated way of updating users' code to support some feature in Node, specifically correct TS specifiers. It is ready to go. It's been pretty well tested. It depends on Joy's register hooks. So it has been waiting to be released for that to be backported to an LTS line, which happened a few hours ago. So as soon as that lands in an LTS line, then we can release this migration for general consumption. I've been working with the CodeMod team on automating releases of that. It's most like we have an automation for it, but it has to be manually triggered basically by me at the moment. And it depends on like my own token. They're working on making it more like generic so that it doesn't have to be tied to a specific person. But that is still ongoing. We did get some interest from a community author about supplying an additional migration, also related to TypeScript, for transforming existing code that uses TypeScript specific stuff into erasable syntax. So that should ease the pain of people trying to adopt Node's use or Node support of TypeScript. On the DEI front, we noticed at the last summit that that was not where we all thought it was. So one of the efforts that we started here was to have some sort of like mentorship program type thing in person to help people who want to get more involved in coding, specifically like targeting like underrepresented people. So we partnered with CodeBar, which is like quite a large charity that does this in the UK, and started an Amsterdam chapter about a month ago. We've had one meetup so far, and feedback from it is pretty good. Interest is growing. We'll have another one probably in a few weeks. So that effort is still ongoing. And also we were talking at the last Collab Summit about how we have a bunch of data from users and collaborators that we have some analysis on, but we wanted to expand sort of the sophistication of the analysis that we were doing. So we have a new contributor, Zach, who will be here tomorrow, who has been doing that with the previous survey data and will be helping with the upcoming one. That's all the things that I know about. Does anybody have any other update from something that came out of Dublin or the previous one to run through?
There is a funny update out of the tooling session. The consequence is we had a Blue Sky account, It's kind of weird, like, funny consequence of the tooling session, but we have a blue sky account as the part of the result of the discussion.
True, yes, forgot about that.
That was quick, right? It was really like a very short space.
Yeah,
Like a week.
There was the also the module loading customization session that we're still going to continue this in tomorrow.
Mhm.
But yeah, we did. I think it was we did ship module regional hooks after the summit, so that was something that's done, and we there was the discussion about configuration files that Marco also does it, and I think it's already shipped in 23. Not sure if it's
Yeah, it's shipping 33.9.0.
Yes, and we are going to continue discussions about the rest of the hooks tomorrow. And there is also there was also the discussions about migration to ESM, which I guess we haven't really done enough in the documentation part, even though in the ecosystem, James from the E18E project is already starting migrating a bunch of ecosystem projects like packages. So that's already kind of starting in their own way. And we'll probably can have some kind of collaboration with them to kind of document their experience doing this. I guess that's all for module customization.
We have been working on syncifying the module loader. Ran into some other tests that were like randomly failing and discovered what is possibly a bug in a couple other places. So we're working on that. The first main one will syncify the default load path that Node does. That I believe the pull request for it itself is ready to go. It just is waiting on the bug fix that it itself uncovered because CI is now failing because the module loader sped up enough to expose the bug. And yeah, in terms of like the full ESM support kind of stuff, I think we had identified fully syncifying the ESM loader. And what was the other thing? It was on your kick the hornet's nest.
Oh yeah, there is a racing condition. Oh, you mean the common JS?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I opened an issue. It actually was a PR to understand what to mark CommonJS as legacy, and the whole point of the discussion was to understand what are the actual points, like what are the changes that need to happen in order to make ESM a first-class citizen in Node.js. And there is still some discussion ongoing, but it's like, at least from my point of view, it's still not clear what needs to happen to shift from the CommonJS to ESM as first class. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Cool. And there's the funding session, which is supposed to be, I guess Michael will have the best idea, but he has some family stuff coming up that so he cannot join remotely. So I don't know who else is part of the funding discussion.
This is news to you.
I think this was something that we talked about in the next team, but like Michael has full ownership of it, so I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I guess I can quick, we had a board discussion about it, it was the board policy, and we had a good discussion, we're gonna follow up and learn some of the discussion. So no decision's been made.
Okay, cool. those are all the things I know. Anybody have anything else?
There was also the documentation session and the diagnostics working group session. What was Stephen, you proposed the last diagnostic session. Do you have any updates or is Stephen still here? Or- Oh, yeah.
I didn't really add anything since there's like the acyclical storage thing
Okay.
later.
Guess we can continue that in last session. And documentation. I remember what we were talking about the last time. There was some development in the API doc. Truly,
Yes,
Claudio is not here. He couldn't come.
yes, so last I saw, there is a pull request for this that is nearing the later stages towards landing. So I think, yeah, no, nothing definitive to say on that point yet, except it's coming.
There's also the release working group. I think that was just like regular release session.
Oh, Antoine, I think did that last time, right? Yes, yeah,
Or
yeah.
like, was that just a regular meeting moved into real life?
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think that's it.
Okay,
We can move on to the next one.
yes, which is also me. All right, so. The next thing is. We have some collaborators who have been sort of like unofficially mentoring contributors, and there are also other contributors who want to be mentored, and if they don't end up talking to the right person, then they don't necessarily end up finding a mentor. So in Next 10, we were discussing different ways to do this without getting too terribly formal and creating too much like process for it. So what we had discussed from this was basically an opt-in kind of thing from collaborators to say like, I'm open to be mentoring. And then we keep like a loose list of they say they want to mentor and like a rough capacity of that. And then when a contributor is looking for mentorship, they can be like nominated for it in a similar way that we nominate collaborators. And then they could be picked up by a mentor. It would sort of stand until either someone says like, no, this is a bad idea, or they get picked up. And I was looking to outline a few expectations and responsibilities related to this so that everybody sort of understands what they should bring and get from it. Some of those things are like establishing the amount of interaction you'll have, setting like the level that you want to be involved with each other, stuff like that. And also highlighting that if someone is sort of gone through this like official mentorship program, that they would likely eventually get nominated for collaborator status, and we would recognize that they are not some like random contributor. Like this is someone who's like a known talent that has been sort of guided by like the process for some period of time. So basically, I wanted to open up the floor to feedback, thoughts, concerns, fears.
Um,
Yeah.
we did have like node.js / mentors. I'm not sure. It's been too long that I don't really remember what happened to it.
We ran a mentor request for mentors or mentees
Mhm.
about 3 years ago, and we had a list and chose some, and we could not find a mentor.
And sorry?
There are actually common mentors out there that are not officially doing it. Like I know Yagis is mentoring someone. I am currently mentoring someone.
I'm saying the formal mentor list we had didn't work at the time. I like the informal, but
Why didn't it work at the time?
nobody responded to our requests.
So like,
We
would
didn't have
ask
enough
some-
mentors to mentor the mentees, like nobody raised their,
Okay.
so we set up sort of false expectations with the folks who had applied to be mentored.
Well, we had talked about that in next 10, and that's where we're saying, that it might be better to do a nomination process like the collaborator kind of thing. So someone can like voice interest in it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will get proposed. So we were hoping that that would avoid the misaligned expectation of like, hey, I want to be mentored, and then like it never ends up happening. I am wondering if I was not involved, so just spitballing. If it was possibly like a communication kind of thing, like were we reaching the people who wanted to do the mentoring? That's why I was thinking it would be good to have this sort of like opt-in list, so then we know who.
There was a group, I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, from the project.
The problem was that everyone who had too much on their plate, like everyone who could mentor did. There's also other factors in that are not, I think, a public discussion, but then the people that could mentor did, and then it's a supply and demand issue. There's way more people who are interested in being mentored than there are who can mentor. And it ends up leaving a bad taste in all people's mouths.
Matteo, you had your hand up?
So I did some mentor around that program. The level of, I don't want to put a person on the spot or anything, okay? But the level of the mentee was the level and the effort put in by the mentee was not up for somebody to become a collaborator. Okay, like it was way over what skill they had, and they perceived it, okay, more like, okay, I'm getting some training for free, then I'm going to know and I want to be a collaborator of this project. Okay, so it's way easier to, like, there needs to be somebody with strong motivation to become a collaborator on the project versus somebody that is into, I don't know, for like 6 months, 3 months or whatever the period, and then they disappear. Okay, because it's not worth the effort. I'm flagging the problem. Generically, it's I mentored a lot of people in some people in Node, mostly outside of Node, because it was code base, it was way easier to grasp than Node.js itself. Okay, Node.js is for some intent and purposes is relatively hard code base to look at. Okay, and so yeah, all of this to say is most people don't have the, like, for example, we have a lot of people that are happily contributing to Undici, but are absolutely not up to the level to contribute to Node Core. Okay, because the code base in Undici is way more understandable and readable compared to Node itself, especially if they work in the higher level API. Okay, and that has been a way to segue people more into helping out and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm just flagging the problem. Like I have way more success in onboarding people in Unity than, for example, to maintain Node HTTP. Okay, and Paolo knows. So
Leave me out.
yes, because it's that code base is very hard to read.
Yes.
Okay, it requires a lot of somebody will say a lot of context to a very high context window.
Mhm.
Okay, and because it's not modular at all, not well structured, and so on and so forth. So
Okay.
so that's
Is that a follow-up or is that a new point? Because I have a follow-up.
Yeah, like I would say like I mostly agree with that, and like, but that's just a problem with tech in general, is like there's different levels of complexity to software systems. We're just in a place where there just isn't many people that are gonna be at the level to do that. However, like both you and I, like, we're mentors to like Yegis and Raphael, and like they've done amazing work. It's like there are people that are very high value for us to mentor, and we should be doing that. Then like how do we identify those people before we know that they are these people?
yes, that is exactly my. You probably nailed my point. If it's somebody that has already put in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 PRs to Node, I very, very happily spend the time to nurture them.
Yeah, that's exactly the sort of person that we were thinking we would then nominate. So like after we see some skin in the game, then we're like, oh, cool, you're contributing, you're trying, like you're clearly looking to contribute to Node, not just get some free education.
All right, if somebody has done like 2 or 3 or 4 PRs of substantial value.
Yeah.
How much mentorship do they actually need? Like, it sounds like they're well on their way at that point.
Yeah, like there's a lot of pretty complex subsystems, and
Okay, sure.
they might like know this particular part that they contributed, but they might like want to work in this other thing and don't understand it. Like with like Raphael, like he spent a bunch of time pairing with me because like he had no idea how this async hooks thing works. We paired on that, and now he understands it a lot better.
Now there's 2.
Yeah, now there's 2 people that understand how it works. I'm sure there's more than 2, but not a whole lot.
And like we weren't thinking that it needed to be like a massively significant contribution, just something that shows promise. Like yeah, like updating like a few bits of documentation or something nice, but not quite that. Like if someone is trying to like fix some bugs and like work on like a small feature or something, like that would be good. They could also do like little documentation updates and stuff like that, or like if they're I don't know, adding a bunch of like JS doc typing kinds of things, like that would be quite good and showing promise. So we would probably need to identify like what sorts of things we call what. Yeah.
It sounds like a more accurate word for like what you're describing would be like outreach or onboarding. In the sense of like, these are people who've already broken the threshold of I'm in Node or I'm doing something here. And then it's like, okay, how do we enable leveling up? Because like what you're kind of describing, or the system you're describing does track with how I think a lot of people have come into the project and contributing to core specifically, is they don't contribute to core to start with. They usually contribute to something orbiting core. And then that, like, I think Kiki's is an example of this. I forget what project it was that he contributed to outside of core first, but he like got outside and then rapidly got it. And I think like figuring out how to enable that funnel of you're someone who is already existing, contributing to something within the scope of Node, but not necessarily Node core. How do we like onboard you into getting into Node core? How do we like bring you in to the parts that you're interested in? And I think that also, like if you're phrasing like that, a mentorship also like just as a word has like a lot of connotation that people outside the project are like, gonna have expectations around, where it will be like I am outside the project and you're mentoring me to come into it. Where if it's like onboarding or outreach, you can kind of be like, this is for people who who have shown up and have entered the door, and then we want to like, show you around the house.
Yeah, like
I
onboarding buddy, I guess.
what's that? Yeah,
Onboarding buddy.
exactly. And I think that seems to be what everyone's describing.
Yes.
I would also say we should probably clarify the terms a bit with like calling someone a mentor. Like I feel like a lot of people are going to look at this and see like, oh, this is just mentoring on like how Node works and not necessarily like actually onboarding you to contribute to the project. I feel like probably going to be a certain amount of people that are going to confuse it for here's just some free training. It's like if we're very clear that like we are teaching you how to contribute to Node.
Yeah. Onboarding training.
I sent you a
Robin wanted to say something.
Oh, there, I sent you a link to the repo. That's who we had emailed. It was 2021. There's GitHub/Node.js/mentorship. And it was the folks on the, and I look back to the 2021, that's when we did it. It's been a while. Those are the 4 we done outreach. Oh, I slacked you. Jacob.
For everyone. Is wondering what she's talking about.
That should probably be.
Yeah, this was it. So yeah, maybe we revive this in some way or like replace it with whatever. Okay, so it sounds like generally positive reception of the concept, and then we need to refine the how and the messaging and that sort of stuff. Yes, no, no objections, sustained. Okay, so I think maybe the next steps here are to like collate the feedback that we've got here and update the proposal in Next 10 and then re-present and solicit for feedback, hopefully before the next summit, but possibly then.
Like, how do we, there was the recommendation and that about nominating people when you mentored them. How do we have the expectation that people really are going to be nominated afterwards? Because ideally, I would like to mentor people even when they are not really even after the mentoring in a position that I would nominate them to become a collaborator.
No, they're really good.
You mean like,
You
you mean like they're trying to game the system and like.
No, I mean, like, some people, they will maybe do like some smaller work, which is great already on its own. But to become a collaborator, I personally, I don't, there might be different opinions, but I have like a high bar for nominating someone because of the trust that you have to have in that person's capability of understanding the responsibility they have in their form as a collaborator. And when they are still like maybe they are willing to learn and I see their progress and so on and so forth, and I'm willing to also mentor them. But I don't believe they would be in the level or in the position even after a mentorship of a few months to become a collaborator. This document says that should be the case. It's like an expectation. That is something I question.
So. You mean like you want the option of mentoring them, but then like mentoring someone who you don't think will become a collaborator and then you don't want.
No, ideally they might become it, but maybe it takes a little bit more time.
Oh, but there's no time aside from the MIA
I
stuff.
understand that.
Oh, okay.
Nevertheless, like when you write it down like this, and I would come in as a fresh person and I would read it, I do have an underlying expectation when I would be a mentored person. It's like you want that nomination when you write it down like this. And as such, I believe it can be harmful to someone I would mentor that I would not nominate, even though there is no, everything was good otherwise,
But I think there would be that anyway, like even if it's not.
I don't agree to that.
No?
I mean, I think Mateo gave an example of that, right? Where there was someone who just like was in the mentorship program and just kind of never hit the level of like, this is someone who can be nominated for a collaborator. It's not their fault. It's not our fault. It's just that's not where this person is right now. And like coming in with the set expectation that they are going to become a collaborator, you are setting up for some really hard situations that I think are going to make a lot of people like the mentor is going to have a bad time because it's basically going to be like they're going to feel bad that they can't get this person to that point. It's also not on them. And then the mentee is also going to feel bad because they have this expectation that Ruben's describing that is not attainable. And I think just having verbiage for that failure state is upfront is helpful in like setting expectations correct. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, I think it could be a couple things. Like, I think it is important to say what the purpose of the program is. It's like to train collaborators. So like you kind of have to say in
Train
some
collaborators, but there's a
Okay, I think you can simultaneously say that this is the purpose of such a program, but not a guarantee that that end state will be achieved. So I think like it's possible to hold both of those things fairly straightforwardly. Like I would, kind of expect based on what kind of everyone's saying, that it could say something like, this program is intended to help grow new collaborators, but like is not a guarantee that anyone participating in this program will themselves become a collaborator.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think we should probably also, as mentors or whatever, onboarding buddies or whatever, provide feedback. So like if if it's like 3 months into it or something, probably you should talk about it. Like if the person is like trending and like otherwise they'll kind of just be getting antsy. It's like, when is it happening?
Right, and I think what we're saying is there needs to be verbiage in here that gives the mentor like the option for this isn't happening.
But yeah.
Okay, I think that's perfect.
yeah, because right now there's nothing there. But
Okay, good point. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Ruben and Tierney with on the supposed expectation from mentees. We either, other than also stating explicitly that graduating, if you pass me the term, in the mentorship program does not implicitly means that you either become a collaborator or be nominated for that, or we can also eventually follow the other path and saying, this is explicit to create a new collaborator, but in that case, we need to set explicit in the program, explicit expectation of what you need to achieve in order to become a collaborator. So people, mentees know if they are not, or they are there, or they are not there eventually. That's also another viable option.
Well, I think that's an adjacent discussion because what we would apply for someone for like graduation criteria.
Yeah.
I think that should be the same criteria for someone just becoming a collaborator who hasn't gone through.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Which also brings to the other discussion that we have on
Yes.
ongoing. Yes,
Yes.
but I agree. The thing is that I would suggest to do even for the other thread that we have, so we can probably implicitly apply that thing to the mentorship program
Yeah,
eventually,
exactly.
if we do that. But yes, I agree.
Cool. Any other thoughts, concerns, fears?
I guess it's just maybe it's more of a thing for the mentors that there needs to be maybe it's easy to slip into mentoring expecting it to be only a positive direction thing and maybe not be equipped to deal with the plateauing scenario. So you might subscribe to mentoring for the positive outcomes and not for the unpleasant ones where you realize that this person is not going to make it to that point. So maybe there's some maybe the verbiage will help as a fallback, but I guess people going into this as a mentor should have their eyes open to it's not always going to work out and you might need to be the bearer of pleasant news to someone.
On this one, I also have another opinion here. The thing is that, of course, anybody is more than welcome to apply to the mentorship as a mentee. But I also think since we have limited resources as mentors, that there should also be a very, very early, without really stick on the time window, but an early barrier that says you're qualified to apply to the mentorship program because there is room for you to eventually grow up and become, pass the mentorship, or we immediately see that you're not even I mean, I'm talking about extreme cases, obviously, right? You're not even closer to what is the minimum technical knowledge in order to start contributing. So we encourage to reapply to the mentorship program whenever you reach the minimum bar, which in this case is not a very high bar, but at least, I mean, for instance, if a person say, I have no idea how JavaScript works, you don't even start, right? So something like that. I mean, this is of course an extreme example, but there should be a minimum bar to accept people.
Well, I think if it's a nomination process, then I would.
Oh,
expect
it's
we would
nominated,
not-
it's nominated, yes,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we wouldn't have
In that case, I would switch to that, just make the criteria explicit.
Okay.
That's how I would switch the suggestion, yes.
Steve.
I'm wondering if it might actually make sense to just have like two separate tracks of like essentially there's like I want to be a contributor, I want to grow my knowledge, and there's I want to be a collaborator, I want to grow my trust. Like there's kind of two separate things here.
How would you address those differently?
Well, one has like the collaborator path has the expectation that like I'm trying to get to be a collaborator. I need to build this trust to get there. Whereas the contributor, there's not really any expectation necessarily, at least not from our end. There's only the expectation like they want to learn so they can contribute. How much they contribute is up to them. But we're not gaining anything necessarily.
I propose something like a way to get people to receive one-on-one session from collaborators to get inside on the code base, something like that.
Yeah, like I've done the like contributor side of like mentoring people and understanding like async hooks, async local storage, that sort of thing, so that they would understand it. But I had no intention that like these people are going to become collaborators necessarily. It's just it's useful to this person to understand this for whatever reason.
So you're thinking like a more casual route.
Yes, having like two separate ones, so like the expectations are separate in the two cases.
I'm thinking in that case, that would maybe fall outside the scope of the program. Like you could also do that, but you probably wouldn't be as involved with that person for such a long period of time.
Well, the thing is that
It being outside of the scope though, like you're like this is going to be a funnel for like a whole bunch of people are going to see this path and not necessarily going to see this other path and you're probably going to get essentially a lot of false positives of people want the contributor training and not the collaborator training.
if I may,
If you put them together, you can direct the people, yeah, what you want is this, here, go this way.
if I get, if I understand Steven's idea, for your idea, basically we just list, we just need a list of people that are putting themselves available to spend some time with people asking for detailed insight in the code base. I would say ideally pairing these people with the area of expertise, because if people come to me saying, can you explain, I think hooks, I have no idea, I have to ask Steven. If they come to me and say, can you explain me HTTP? Yes, I can. So it's otherwise say, okay, hi, Paul, I'm available for talking to people if they want to have insight on the code base only in regards of HTTP. And it's more casual than probably this structural approach, but yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like one of the problems I've seen Nodecore have for a long time is that we have a lot of knowledge silos. There's a bunch of fairly complex subsystems that very few people understand. And if people make it very explicit, like I will say to this room right now, I'm available to talk about async hooks and async local storage. If you want to know how it works, talk to me. I will talk to you as much as you want. I want other people to understand how it works, so the thing doesn't just fall apart someday. I'm sure other people feel the same way about their subsystems.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because I think we generally have an idea of who among us is familiar with what things, even if that is sort of tribal knowledge, like we're the tribe that's organizing it. So like when we're picking, like when someone is nominated, then perhaps we include in that nomination, this person is interested in these areas. And then we could be like, oh, maybe this is a Steven person. Oh, maybe this is a Pablo person. Maybe this is a Jacob person or a Ruben person. Like we could also if someone is like registering to be one of these onboarding buddies, they can include that information in it. So then if we're trying to pair people up, we can basically just pivot table. Yes.
I think we've heard several times already that there's a bunch of people who are already doing mentorship or are doing it like without a system. I guess something I'd be curious to hear from them is this something that they feel would be additive or would help them? Because I think given that we do already have like an informal mentorship system that is working to some extent, perhaps like making sure that this is serving that rather than running parallel or like even distracting from that, I think would be really valuable.
We'll call you out, but I think we have some of those people in this room. So like I am currently doing it, Ruben is doing it. I don't know, Mateo, if you said you're actively doing it, you've done it previously, like, oh, maybe Stephen, like.
Raphael does it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Twitch. And so I had him post his Twitch things in the introductions channel. We have mentees who do our Grace Hopper conference and they're official mentee as part of that program.
Okay. So like one of the reasons that I was proposing this is because I think this would help me as a mentor, especially, yeah, if they, I don't want it to be my opinion. I want it to be like our opinion because we're collaborators. So like if I'm doing with what I'm doing works, okay, cool. But like, are we all aiming at the same thing?
And let me try to wrap up what I heard so far. I agree that everyone is in favor of the mentoring thing. I believe there was no one speaking against that. So like that is positive to have like a dedicated thing for it again, like that we pick it up. And the controversial part seems to be about the collaborator status. And my recommendation would be, let's take it out for now and handle it as a separate issue, like what the outcome of a mentorship should be, besides just helping people to contribute more to core. That should, in the end, no matter if it's like Node Core or actually any other part of Node, should ideally lead to a collaborator nomination anyway.
Yeah.
I agree, and I will also add to defer the discussion on the collaborator status after we resolve the other issue on the collaborator expectations, and then we revisit this part of the proposal, because I agree that for the rest we agree. Just that little tiny bit is the one that we're causing some sort of friction, but I agree with Ruben's proposal.
Cool. Stephen?
Yeah, so from the mentorship side of things, like even as like a contributor to core, I personally would find it valuable just to have the like extremely basic system of just have a list of the people from the different subsystems that have put up their hand and said, I will mentor people on this, come to me if you have questions. Like I'm sure a bunch of us are happy to do that, but like there's no explicit statement that like anyone in particular is okay with doing this, is willing to put their time into doing this. I would like to having a list where we've just said, I'm ready to do this if you come to me. Like that alone is of value to me as a mentor, but to an external contributor, that's huge value because like they don't necessarily even know who the people are that own these subsystems.
I would like to expand on that because even if I'm not willing to be a mentor on my own, I might be willing to like, you know, if someone actively reaches out for a question in this specific area, I can share my knowledge island, you know, so we could just add a list of people who are experts in specific parts of core to that document. And I believe that would fulfill
Yes.
what you were talking about.
Also was proposing earlier, yes. A list of people that say, I'm expert in async hooks, HTTP
Yeah.
or whatever else.
It sounds like code owners, but for mentorship.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much, yes.
You just reach out, you know,
So it's
like no
not-
matter if you're, sorry.
Basically, the difference is not a formal and lasting missing the term. As you're not putting yourself in availability, whatever, I mean, I'm not depending in English, yes, for that, for a long term, but rather for spot help to people that eventually need it, which is, for instance, for me is a game changer because I cannot apply to them as a mentor because I simply have no time. But if anybody says, do you have 20 minutes to open on Slack, for sure I have it, but not for a whatever casual or regular one-on-one they're stuck there. So in that case, I can participate.
You might have a passive benefit of documenting where the gaps are too. Like if you can see like, oh, there's 5 people in most of the areas and there's 1 in async, whatever. But
Yeah, which is also another thing that we're missing. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, we put the question, what happens if a method is this room right? That's, we still have an ongoing problem with that. So we need to do something.
Notice that.
Yeah.
One other problem that I foresee potentially existing is keeping it updated. So for instance, if someone shifts focus from one area to another for like a significant period of time, maybe they don't remember so much about that, or they're like, oh, so like maybe we should have some scheduled kind of thing that will like ping people. Is this still current? Cool, good.
Maybe an alternative there. I mean, we have our list of collaborators.
Yeah.
And normally the collaborators have an area of expertise.
Mhm.
We could pretty much have like a linked document where we copy our list of collaborators
Mhm.
and put next to them areas where they feel comfortable to help other people out or say, I have a lot of knowledge here.
You mean like in the main README?
We can put it somewhere else. I wouldn't put it in there because it becomes too big, but just, you know, like linked
Mhm.
and also linked here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Steven?
Yeah, for the keeping it up to date thing, like we could just have like an issue in the mentorship repo that we just post like every whatever number of months or once a year or something. That's just ping all the people on the list, respond with a thumbs up within X time or remove you from the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're good. Thanks, everybody. I think who's next.
Brian.
Yeah, quick announcement. If you are staying at the Marriott/Renaissance and you have lost your hotel key card, please let me know. I may have it.
Next 10, improving collaborator experience or something?
I guess we can take a
Go.
10-minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
It's your time to shine.
Shining.
No pressure, you know. Are we taking a break, right?
Yes, we're
Okay.
taking a 10-minute break.
So there's a break area across here. Watch water or anything.
I was gonna just, okay.
You know.
Thank you for.
see that you changed all of it.
Somebody's not gonna get
Okay. Try to help, because I'm just stepping on your toes.
It's fine. Okay, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm trying to.
I wouldn't mind.
Ok. Credo così, ok. Dopo.
Especially stuck in that thing that is, for example, so I feel like yeah, Burak. Okay. Yeah. It's not.
Especially one of the sessions tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's for books. That are not single executable.
Like two.
You
Like
help build,
it's less
PR and everything. That's kind of thing.
that it's native.
That's nice.
Well, I think it's a place to sit. No. Cool.
Like knowing where to like the right. Like that.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess for some
I'm interested in whoever wants to join that.
perspective,
Session tomorrow.
essentially, I think we've always been looking at improving the tooling here, because we still use Garden one.
Yeah.
The
PMPM's like hoisting mechanism is like a very like too often with somehow craziness going on. So we managed to do this part of it. And we thought about that before, but kind of like, well, we can't turn on plug and play. Anyone works.
Yeah.
It's just not ideal. It's getting slow.
It's a little bit.
I mean,
Design.
I worked with a team at Microsoft for a little bit, just seeing what.
If people are used to the
needed
like just
From a
documentary model, and then they
to see if they could support it, because they were.
essentially does the same thing with the shape.
They've used it.
They're gonna wonder why the shape is.
When then supported their own.
The reason for that is much better.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, just to be like.
Most people
Help it,
know or care about
help
performance,
it
they just
along.
care about how do they work.
But yeah, it's.
We should,
So, I mean. One.
I could probably take some time to look into this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to
It's
see.
been a-
I really want this same
It's something I should have done for a while. but
executable application stuff, like for Node to support it better, so we can make tools like
Yeah, for sure.
that, and
I actually think
Yeah.
Rock wrote like
Basic local storage, in terms of people's processing, mostly just lives in 2 files.
Yeah, that's something really nice.
he wrote like a little tool because we have a bunch of like.
we have so many.
Mostly just lives in 2 files.
En fait, le truc, c'est que.
Mais
par contre, c'est que la fois que tu fais une queue, tu cliques sur, mais t'en as, c'est pas la même. En gros, t'en as 5 qui font, je viens de checker sur un truc.
I don't know that kind of JavaScript.
Et le truc, c'est
I don't understand, but
comment ça a été matché.
fantastic.
D'autres un peu moins.
I have my lap of something that I put on it. That's perfect. Okay, without that.
It's also a pain because so many times people are writing with the production, then we have to ask, oh, are you using PNPM? And they'll say, yes.
There's,
Like, oh, if you try it with anything else, or if you change, like, change your PNPM config.
Is this for people installing?
Oftentimes like lighting or.
which is the copy.
Some people also have like really great setups where they'll alias things. Aliases break.
Seems to me.
For me, the biggest, the most complex thing that the problem that I found been is
Après, je me dis,
it's like
It's like it's in context.
I don't really understand our dependencies with it. My brain cannot understand.
Not just for us.
et je le remplace par.
Confident enough to.
Ouais, mais c'est juste que du coup, si quelqu'un monitor. Et ben en fait, il va pas l'avoir parce qu'il va pas checker le script.
J'imagine que quelqu'un.
Si ça
It's like, we can play, right? Yeah, I don't know, you can bring that. Because it's a bit of a topic, but it's not like you don't know this.
Parce qu'il a repris ça. Basically.
But if we should, I think the latest default settings are.
To not allow that. You have to, and then that's just a bad experience.
There's
To go into their.
C'est trouver le lien par contre pour voir.
without
Turn some.
made into follow-ups, I think partly because.
Built in for signing on. It's like another way to.
They're trying to like define.
They have a lot of like.
It's fine. Forms you can sign binaries on
They're asserting their opinions of how the language should be structured.
Eventually.
TC39.
From what I'm looking at for our tool that we want to build, like it would almost be a requirement. Stuff like the micro caching, which
A bunch of stuff that's lost.
I've still experimented. It makes your binary bigger, but if it can get speed of fast.
Eventually it's got to a point where it's.
But then you have, because right now in C, I'm just building everything on
There.
one platform.
Ambivalence of it, I would say.
Don't think.
Right.
But then there's all these other things.
Our native stuff is also not the same. Nobody's complained to us. You're somebody who, okay.
There's.
I just thought that's how.
What do you do for like niche?
So
Right now we are in this. Tool. So we haven't crossed that bridge yet.
The other thing that's missing, which to be fair, basically.
But if someone comes to us and it's like, I will use it, it's on that platform. Like, check it out. For right now.
So I just showed an example earlier.
The reason I want to start
The
with
user of
CLS for people application, the reason I proposed this session is because
So they had an async function
found
where
enough
they
blockers for us that we
try to
just.
create a database transaction basically.
Pilots
They
that
had
right now.
bring the
And
transaction and
It's,
stuff it
works
into.
pretty well. I found, you know, I definitely.
And then after that, it goes back to basic function. And I have like a couple calls to do.
And it's not a long-term
database
solution.
transaction.
It's
And then have the other call in to.
users,
Yeah, commit a role.
So I think that automatically signs.
Excuse going into these functions. Modifying the state and then coming back to.
But that only supports
It
the
didn't
five.
work because async context
It doesn't support.
and
ARM.
edits storage as well. Binds around awaits. Like, but whenever you await a promise, this branch, the context will flow into the branch, but then all that will get cut off.
The founder of our company
Wait.
does all this work.
They start all this. Restart.
Windows are laptops. If it doesn't work on it. If I sit on arrival.
Whatever.
I still don't understand.
Eventually, it's the end should be what
Yeah.
comes always.
It's like, yeah, from what I read, like it's licensed differently, where like. It's like.
It currently flows into the.
Windows are.
Which is. It's always gonna be like. So for tracing products.
But you just. Yeah, we can't like. So if there's no issue on the Dino.
We create our recommendations by wrapping another function, which means our application must add to something.
Okay, so
Internal to those wrap this. And
It's like. It's like a 0.01% user line. You want to pay most support, but you use
we can't do that, whereas it's called.
There's gotta be.
We can do
I
that.
just wonder if there's, if the way. If you're running.
Either
project
make
that
a
you
hack
want to build,
to try to do that, or it's flat.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Good talk about mentor and mentees. That was a talk that when I discovered Node.js or contributing to Node.js were there like 2018, 2019, I think, something like that. So yeah. Collaborating to Node.js or every open source project is always hard. There is a lot of issues or some stuff that we consider as being issued. Just really quickly, we have a bit more than 1 hour. We slightly discuss about CI issue. So feel free if you want to put it somewhere in the dashboard. So I send a link on the Zoom and also on the discussion on Slack. So just quickly, the main idea is to take 10 minutes just to see what will be the main pain point that we are all facing. I just did 3 specific columns. The fourth one about new collaborator would be, we'll use that as a second part of the discussion. I don't have an exact ranking between huge and small issues, but let's say frustration are stuff that you're okay to do, but it's quite repetitive and you don't like to do that, but the impact is really small. A small issue would be maybe every time you are working or committing or contributing, it takes 5-10 minutes and you that much of time every day, or every time you're working on Node.js. And huge pain point is stuff that would close to be, you want to leave the project and, I don't know, have goats and vegetables somewhere in France. Or another country, feel free to choose your favorite country there. That's really the main part. Let's take 10-ish minutes, something around that, just to write that. The main idea is I really want to see what would be the biggest pain point for the people that are here today and online, and trying to, and even if that's a discussion that we have during most of the collaborator summit in the last 2 years or something like that, really to be able to class and order what will be the main pain point and how can we take time or focus specific effort, for example, can be from an extend or specific initiative part of the Node.js project to really tackle those issues and to try to fix them. The idea is not to reach to some kind of paradise, that would be great, but at least to say that next collaborator summit, if you want to do also talk about what's happening since last time, we can say, hey, we solved that issue about like ECI, or we saw that issue on onboarding new people. That's the main idea. And really trying to first see the issue, and second part to how can we solve them? And we will focus mainly on 3 or 5 of them just to find good ways. And maybe if people want to volunteer on leading some initiative or stuff like that, feel free to reach out. That's the main idea. So we need to have that. Yeah.
So did you say what the new collaborators called?
So I didn't put the new yeah, so we will do that in the second part. Basically, in advance, how can we improve new collaborator joining the project? I don't want to discuss about mentoring because you did it just before. Would be which path can we design for people that maybe don't need a mentor or someone to help them, but to find how they can collaborate on what are the topics that make sense, not contributing to stuff that really may be deprecated in 6 months. That's the main idea. But the main idea is really to focus on the first 3 ones. Just tell me if the link is not working. But yeah,
That's right.
cool.
Where's the link?
I put the link in the discussion.
It's in Slack too.
Yeah, on Slack.
That's always been the whole spread. I remember
The people talking. Oh, okay. Maybe they will hear me and come back. Yeah.
Oh, should we open another window? Is it warm? Do people find it warm or cool in here, or everybody's okay? Everybody's okay.
Like all the.
What's the, well, there are 2 things. Right now, they're a secret. Right now, they're a secret, but yes, there are 2 things.
They're teachers.
We will probably distribute it after this session.
There you go. Get this.
It's
Where you have to identify.
What's up? Hello, Claudio, how are you doing?
Oh, speaking to you, dude.
Just quickly for the new people that join. Cool. I put on the Zoom the link to the Easy Retro board, and it's also on Slack on the discussion for the Cloud Summit. Main idea, very important stuff that would almost make you quit working or contributing to Node.js because it's a really, really huge issue. A small issue is something that you can bear because it's maybe repetitive, but takes, I don't know, a couple of minutes or a bit more, but that's really something that make you lose a lot of time and frustration and stuff that could be better. Nice to improve if we have time, basically.
Where do I assign the unionization of Node.js volunteers? We need an union. Collaborator rights, collaborator rights. Oh, I'm just messing around. I have no idea if people can hear me, but
yeah,
whatever. Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have chat history here in Zoom. So is it on Slack the link also?
I just send it again.
Is it like a show?
Awesome. Oh, a retro board. Cool. Okay. I'll give it a look in a few. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you want, you can use the QR code, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's easier. But...
Anonymous. Okay.
There's a lot of huge issue. I'm playing the HR today.
Playing the adult today.
Yeah. Let's say 7, 8 more minutes.
I missed it. I mean, I have the link to this thing, but it doesn't have the add button. Do I need some permission? Do I need to log in?
No, technically you can just put a click on plus on top of the screen on each column and it should be able to add.
Ah, there it is. It didn't show, bro. I had to refresh. Okay, thank you.
Oh, that would be a good list.
Is the last column full?
So basically, the late column new collaborator would be a second part, but if you have ID, it's really what for you if you discuss with people that wanted to collaborate or contribute to Node.js that maybe they found difficult to find how to contribute or how to do the main ideas, not to discuss about mentorship because we just did that before, but issue, let's say, that you may encounter if you're a new collaborator or starting to collaborate, which I don't think is the case here, but main idea is to then, if we have time, to find also how can we improve new collaborator or facilitate their entry to working with Node.js.
So in other words, if what I see that if I would be a new collaborator would impact my collaboration.
Yeah, what you would like to be able to find out to help you on a daily or starting contributing to Node.js.
You should have asked this 6 years ago to me, but it's fine.
I think for a few people, most of the people around the today would be 6-ish. Pre-COVID kind of stuff.
Yep.
I just took one. I just posted it on Slack. Exam time. take 2 more minutes. And then we'll have a good list, I think. Are we all good? Some people are still writing. Let's reveal the big pain point and issues. Choo-choo. Let's start with the left part with a huge pain point. So first one, collaborator with strong knowledge of subsystem, like time to maintain a system effectively, not many other with the time and knowledge to pick up the slack. Okay, second one, extreme consensus seeking, soft objection, unwilling to take vote or decision until the verdict is already clear. Third one, never-ending discussion even on small details. Obscure architecture, OSs to support, CI flake, political clash on contributor nomination, lack of diversity. Some collaborators are very nitpicky on their PR review and block PR for simple thing. CI flakiness, I will just group them. Flaky CI. Some collaborator, yeah, lack of fault reviewing C++ code changes, slow response time in review. And the last one, no one has been able to fix the deadlock bug. How can we move that forward? Okay. We also have flaky CI on a small issue. We also have flaky CI or unreliable CI on the first section one. I will just group everything together first. Are we okay to say that never-ending discussion, knowledge? So some collaborators are very nitpicky on their PR review and block PR would be the same as never-ending discussion on small details. Are we okay to merge that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
I would say that those aren't always the same. Some of that never ending this discussion is in issues, not just PRs.
And just a lack of fault reviewing C++ code change. Should we merge that with the first one, collaborator with strong knowledge of subsystem, like time to maintain? Is it the same or do you think, no?
I'm not sure that those are the same. It's not always about lack of time or availability. Sometimes it's just people just don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I would say the deadlock bug is a symptom of people already gone.
True.
Do you think there is other specific card to merge, or are we good with that for the first column?
Actually, I would like to add one that I forgot.
Feel free.
It's not possible anymore. Oh, yes, it is, sorry.
The lack of folks reviewing C++ changes and the slow response times in reviews, those could probably be.
Yeah. Are we okay with that?
generally not getting reviews.
Okay.
Like follow-up of
Or
reviews.
you
Same thing.
understand what you write.
Okay, merging the two. You're writing one. Updating V8 is becoming more and more tricky. The V8 team is not working with Node.js as the old team does.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty much locked with our next major at the moment. That's like a big one.
Yeah, true, that's
pretty big.
okay.
And that's the GN issue, not specifically, because VA does maintain their fork of them, they just don't maintain our fork. Yeah. Different things.
Small issues, lot of friction to get in PR to land, flaky CI, extra non-typical step with like commit messages rule, lack of visibility for what needs work. And people are still adding stuff.
Actually, Claudio has a question that.
Oh, sorry.
If you show up on the screen, I don't know where though.
I noticed a lot of issue late here, talk only about Node.js, not core problem. What about high level problem that affect the rest of the organization? Can I show them?
I guess they belong here, Claudio.
So yeah, it's not just the board is not just restrained to just Node.js, it's technically the Node.js ecosystem.
Yeah.
But nothing about it.
It's not part of your duty.
Cool. Second one, weird stuff about CI. Some people removed that. Oh, it was moved to the other one. Thanks you. Thanks. Lots of friction. So first one, lot of friction to getting paired to learn flaky CI and new stuff. Some subsystem have very little development effort support, not many contributing. Bus factor is a concern. Next one, knowledge silo and not knowing where to start when lacking historical context about an issue or initiative. Too many open pull requests, cross-cutting concept that folk might not be as familiar with, like permission of snapshot. Okay. Some frustration, minus 05 or O objection. I would guess the first one is about people just blocking a PR, or is it about something else for just some minor feedback? Or
When I wrote it, I meant something like the people are saying things without really objecting, so they're basically just increasing the discussion, which are typically already big, without no real reason. If I can.
Okay, so it's basically people not wanting to block something, but having concern, but that's not the
take a stance.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much take a stance.
Okay.
Well, that was the intent, so I'm not sure we want to interpret that.
Labels on pull request, I'm guessing, are confusing. Which one should I use? Differing pull request review opinion on what's belonging in core. Okay, this one is a good old one. I'm surprised to have that only in frustration based on the last 5 years, but okay. Primordials. What would be the stuff for primordial? Is it just wanting them, not wanting them? Yeah.
It was not me this time, but
okay.
I guess it's the second.
Okay. If I don't know if the people.
Anybody wants primordials?
Yeah.
Just say.
Okay. New collaborator not fully understanding long existing practices and wanting to change those without fully understanding the context. Okay, we have 500 open pull requests. Some PR are almost stale, but others will not pick them up and bring them over the line. So stale PR. In certain discussion, example loader ESM, it's not possible to express clearly your opinion because there are some people who are very loud and tend to monopolize the discussion. I wish it was possible for everyone to participate in such discussion. Lack of quality debugging diagnostic tooling, identifying memory leaks, for example, is very hard. Async stack trace are another example where the tooling is weak. Discussion about rebase versus squash, fight the system, dangerous and more difficult. Okay. I will go to the new, I will just read the new collaborator. Decision paralysis on what area to begin contributing to add most value, lack of visibility into how things work to figure out how and what to contribute to. I think the two first are the same. I think you understand. Are you okay to merge them?
Pretty much.
Yep. Look, lack of area expertise reference person, so mentor in specific area. Learn guide for becoming a collaborator. We have a great learn material on the website for using Node.js. Let's make the same for getting started as a contributor, something like a welcoming gnome. Okay. Collaborator disagreeing in code review, confusion about what to do to break the standstill. Could be doing more to convince company of the value of having their people per time into Node.js contribution, and proactively suggesting mentorship for people who seems to be good candidate for becoming collaborator at a later step. We can ask in a PR if they would wish for someone to work with them. The visibility that provide to them might encourage more people to contribute. So, okay. Okay, cool. I think we are pretty disagreeing, could be more convincing. Okay. Do we want to start with a big pain point, a huge one? I'm guessing that the most important to try to fix. Cool. I think everyone got 5 plus 1. Just we quickly, wait, I will just change and I will, there's a lot of people. So let's say it's 2 per column per person. You have 1 minute just to check what would be the top 3 on every column.
There are some that are repeated across different columns. Should they be?
Which one are we missing?
Should it be just put like move to the highest?
Yeah, I think I think it was already most of them, maybe not all. So which one are you?
There is like collaborators disagreeing in code reviews.
Yep. But it's on collaborator or some other part?
All right.
Like I just want to put aside the new collaborator column for now. Everyone is good? Let me just also change setting. I think I can order by. We have an order
Outside these settings.
Up. Yeah.
Oh,
So by order.
Left.
okay. I had my stuff. Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay. First one is the 3 main one. Extreme consensus seeking, soft objection, and willing to take voter decision to the verdict is already clear. No one has been able to fix the deadlock bug. How can we move that forward? And CI flake. Okay, that's the first 3 ones. For the first one, first one, sorry. Also, just after that, lack of diversity. Second, top 3, I guess. Too many open PR. A lot of friction getting PR to land. Yeah, flaky CI, extra non-typical step. Let's call it developer experience kind of stuff. Maybe not only, but I will do that. Third one would be cross-cutting concept that folk might not be as familiar with, like permission snapshot. Equality with the same number of votes, and some subsystems have very little development effort support. Not many contributing. Bus factor is a concern. Okay. And third one about frustration in certain discussion, it's not possible to express clearly your opinion. And lack of quality debugging diagnostic tool, identifying memory leaks, for example, is very hard. And a third one that is way behind, new collaborator, not really understanding long existing practices and wanting to change those without fully understanding the context. I will come back to the new collaborator later on. Okay, cool. How do we fix that?
Good question. Just for problems, for solutions.
Yeah. Okay. Just to keep track of that if it changed. I know pretty much everything. Maybe okay. Yeah, I don't know by which one we should be starting. Let's take the habitual one, CI. That's a discussion we have every, I think, last 4, 5, 6 collaborators summit. I don't remember since when. When did we not talk about CI flake? So
just because we don't have a huge amount of time, actually, and we have spoken about CI.
Cool. Let's move to
before.
another one.
Yep. And I believe like we won't come up with anything that we haven't spoken about before. So I would actually.
I was expecting someone to have a brilliant idea just now. It's everything like.
You should fix it all alone.
Remove CI.
For section.
Okay, second one, no one has been able to fix the deadlock bug. How can we move that forward?
Is the deadlock?
What is that?
We do have the link. I think someone sent the link. Yeah, I will just. Is it the right link, by the way? I didn't check.
As far as I remember, it was
I'm guessing it's this one.
Yeah.
One of the links.
one of the links.
There's been several attempts to fix it.
But you can
I will add it.
follow that and go to different links.
We have an example. So if someone that know more about that than me can just take 30 seconds to explain the stuff for everyone.
Joey, come on, you know.
I have not actually looked into this bug. I just,
Really? We're lost then.
We have no idea where it's coming from.
We were waiting for somebody else to look at it.
I have impression, but I never debug it.
I have,
Stephen actually debugged
You
it.
did?
Yeah, I'm one of the people that have attempted to fix it and failed. So there's in the Node platform, we delegate tasks to a worker pool, and there's basically a system of like there's a queue for sending messages over, and it causes the other side to like wait while it's like trying to send the tasks. If one of the workers is GCing at or like triggers V8 can like GC from this worker pool, and if it tries to do that and it wants to GC the main thread, it'll lock the main thread while it's doing that. If at the same time one of the workers is also like sends a signal to lock and wait for the other side, you get this like bidirectional deadlock. These threads are waiting on each other and neither will ever wake up.
And it's easy to reproduce now since you know the behavior, or is it impossible to reproduce?
There is a test that can reproduce it consistently, but on my computer it takes about 150,000 runs to reproduce it. So I have to leave it running for about an hour.
We'll see, like it's normal.
So it sounds like quite an edge case then.
Total edge case, which of course happens.
It is, but it is an issue with worker threads. And so anytime a worker thread stops, this happens.
Okay. Anytime a worker thread stops.
Yes, not the whole process, any worker. So if you spin up lots of workers, you'll probably run into this relatively quickly.
Oh, okay. Okay, not so much.
Darshan, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I noticed that there was some conversation on the issue back in January where I think Matteo asked if Ben would be able to look at the issue. And he said that he would be up for consulting with the TSC. I'm not sure if we tried doing that.
They have no money.
Okay.
Which one is more critical, security, CI, or this is part of CI?
Everything by yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, okay, pretty much. So finding money, basically. Cool.
Yes.
And the first one, extreme consensus seeking, soft objection, and willing to take voter decision until the verdict is already clear.
What does extreme consensus seeking mean?
I can tell you. So I wrote that one. So I've seen both as a TSC member and a collaborator that anywhere we go to discuss whether it's issue, PR, TSC meeting, we basically we drag the discussion up to this extreme until we get to a point that we already know if we get a vote, what is the outcome of the vote. The problem is that we lose people in the meanwhile. People are either stop engaging, they disappear, they surrender. Basically, it's not really consensus seeking, but it's actually extreme democracy that leads people to exhaustion. To give you a very easy example, we start discussing about ditching Gorpak when I joined the TSC last April. The vote happened last month. It took 1 year for various reasons, but most of the reason was not for giving time to Gorpak people to try to update and fix some issues, but also because the discussion got stretched to a huge amount of time. And we lost several collaborators, several TSC members. And this is something that is now also repeated again on collaborator nomination. And it happens in several PRs. As you can see, people have expressed the same concern. I guess I'm just interpreting their intent, but I think it's pretty much the same thing. They've expressed the same concern for just regular PRs or for issues and so forth. It's something that, in my opinion, cannot continue to happen everywhere because people are going to go away. And we know that we need a lot of collaborators to have this program running. So my concern here is that we should be, as an individual, more assertive and say, either I object or I say something. Of course, you can always say something, but I don't say I soft object, I'm minus 0.5 because I was the one also writing the middle. I'm minus 0.5 on this thing. You read as -1 and you explicitly block something, anything I'm saying, or you don't say anything and you let the discussion go forward. That's my pretty much the short opinion here. And the thing is that it's not always possible, and to be honest, it's almost never possible to get consensus on something. So at some point, we have to put up the line and say, stop, we vote, or stop, we ask for hard objection, or the things, whatever the thing is, goes on. That's it. That's my take.
Yeah, I completely agree on this take, and I think that one of the main reasons is that voting is too hard and it takes too much dependent power. So yeah, voting it's too hard. It requires like when we arrive to a vote, it's already like someone has already given up or someone is already exhausted from the conversation. And like even setting a vote, like people don't want to go to vote. It's seen as something like as a last resort, while it should like voting, it's actually something that gives everyone voice and allows everyone to express their opinion. Even when because some discussions are not easy to talk, like some people are very loud, some people have huge social media followers, so they post something on social media and then people like with similar ideas come to a discussion and monopolize it. While voting, if done, it simplifies a lot consensus seeking and removes a lot of friction that we have in discussion. So I think that improving the like making voting easier and faster and not something seen as last resort, but something more available, it would improve our collaboration.
So there was James.
Please raise your hand through Zoom.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, I think it's very important in this just to stress. I mean, our review process going back from the time we launched the foundation has always tried to be geared towards reviews that say I have a explicit reason to say no, not convince me to say yes. And this has come up in a couple of conversations here recently, right? Where I've talked about this. That I have a reason to say no really should be explicit, not a I don't understand this, so I'm going to say no for now until I do, which I've seen, or I'm going to say no because I have a vague other idea that on how this could be implemented, that kind of thing. It's no, I have a concrete reason to say no to this particular change, and I think in recent years we've gotten away from that way too much, where folks will say no and drag out a conversation not because they necessarily think that this particular change is wrong, but because they have another idea. That's not necessarily the right way to use a block. I think if we got back to those basics in terms of like when we're onboarding new contributors to help them understand that is what the process was intended to be. If that makes sense.
Yep. So I believe, and like I agree overall that voting is something we do too late, I would say. Yeah. There's like, we are too far in a frustration area when we agree on now let's take a vote. Nevertheless, I would like to also point to an earlier stage of the discussion where these things are happening when we take a vote in the end most of the time. And I have the feeling that we don't invite people to really like trying to de-escalate it properly from the TSC side either. But like that's something with at least some areas that I have in mind where I've seen it happening, where I feel we could have also done it better and earlier. Like, for example, you brought up Core Pack, like we had the discussion and then nothing really happened. It was just lingering around.
Yeah.
And lingering is bad. It will always create frustration. So instead, maybe we should, like, it's just an idea. Please rip it apart to like say, okay, one TSC member is actively like going to look into the topic and like bringing in the people who have different opinions and trying to drive the topic forward until a specific date. And then that is maybe like, like a year ago, like, okay, if we don't find consensus until then we are going to definitely vote.
Fine. Having a strict rule is fine. Yeah. Good. I mean, I was next actually.
Oh yeah,
I totally agree. So once we have anytime we choose to say, okay, there is a discussion, there is no consensus. I would say if it's a PR, we say 1 week. If it's a political decision, is a month but anything can be made. We cut it and say now it's vote. So it's vote time, which probably we can also simplify the current vote system. Maybe we do something easier and less strict eventually, because it's usually regular decision, not very crucial decisions. And this way, it should not exhaust people, because people eventually, if people are thinking that the discussion is not going anywhere, they can just stop engaging, wait for the deadline to pass, and then we just cast a vote and that's it, and we close an issue. Again, this happens for both collaborator issues and TSC issues for the TSC fellas. I'm also bringing about our TSC decision process. We should do the same. So I agree with Ruben on this, and I'm also agree on with just to finish. I agree with James about the objection. People are totally expected to object to stuff if they don't feel that it is going the right way. but they don't have to use this objection as a block in a subtle and malafide way, basically. If they have a legitimate objection, they can put them, but eventually they must be ready to withdraw their objection promptly when people demonstrate they were not wrong, but they understood it in the wrong way, or other collaborators say, for instance, that their concern is not appropriate for any reason. Leaving an objection stalling in order to basically kill a PR or any initiative is also not acceptable. It's a huge power, and it must be used in a reasonable and prompt way. That's what it is.
I think James mentioned something specific that I think is very important. I think could like help just directly solve this if we address it. Is like walking on I don't understand this, and like basically removing that ability to block on that, and rather than like saying, you know, I don't understand this, or I'm blocking because of that. Introducing like a documented window of like, I don't understand this, I think I'm gonna have an opinion on this. Give me 7 days, like have that as part of the kind of like the window we use with how we do blocking. And then like if you hit 7 days and you still don't have an opinion,
fine. Yeah.
Like we got to move on. You can't just keep this blocked on you forever. I think that would help solve a number of situations like that I've seen. Like I think it is extremely reasonable to block on not understanding something, but you're probably gonna have an opinion about it. But we have to limit that. We can't just let that go forever. And so I think agreeing on documentation of what that would be, whether it's 7 days or 2 weeks or whatever, I think would be helpful.
What about after a discussion has sort of like laid out the broad strokes of things, like a quick straw poll? How about it? Like a quick straw poll. So everyone understands what we're talking about. You get just like a quick, how's everybody feeling? And if you have, I don't know, 12 people in the room and 10 people are on board, then like you have a pretty clear sign that like this is generally well accepted. See what those problem, like why those 2 people are dissenting, and then move on. Like address that, or like go at the discussion from that point, and then like everyone is aware that like there are 2 dissenters versus just a cacophony.
So I was going to say almost the same thing, except, and I don't want to add specific. I don't want to add more work to contributor and stuff like that, but I also saw some discussion where it was 150 pages long of comment, and then you want to join or be aware what was said, and you spend a week just reading through.
Yes.
Yeah, those people are bringing that argument to be against, but then 20 pages later, they are like, oh, okay, I misunderstood and something. So do we also want, or that just a suggestion, I'm okay with the pool and with the deadline and everything, but to take a decision on a specific deadline, you don't want to have 50 people that will vote on something to have to read through 300 pages. So do we also want to have something a bit more formatted, let's say, like RFC ADR, I don't care about the name, on at least a big point on why are we bringing this feature? I know it's hard to do, but like if you have to vote on something, you will go through 50 pages each time. Is it something that we all agree on? Hey,
well, in theory, when you reach a vote, you should make a summary of what you're voting for.
Yes.
So in that case, yes.
Yeah, call it
Yeah.
idea, fake idea, like a pro, con, what was all the points that were raised, if that makes sense. Also because maybe we'll have a lot of people being vocal about I'm against because for the same reason, and you will see there is only one reason why people don't agree, but 50 why we should do that, or the opposite, but at least it's a good indicator on seeing who is for something or against something and what are the reason and the points.
Just one thing about what Tierney and James has said. I just want to point out one subtle thing here, that when people block up here because they don't understand what's going on, I think it's actually a horrible idea. for this reason. You're basically implicitly showing mistrust on the author of the PR. If you block because you don't understand what is happening, you say, basically you're saying, I don't understand what you're doing, and I'm not confident on landing this until I understand what's going on. In that case, you can just abstain from reviewing the PR and wait for somebody else to do that. If you absolutely want to be engaged, you just ask for explanation to the author. And probably in this case, I will make explicit in the collaborator guide that a collaborator is supposed to explain what is proposing, which should be implicit, but whatever, let's make it explicit. But we cannot justify an objection to a PR because it's a sign of mistrust for the other. So I think we should not allow that, to be honest. That's it.
You, yeah.
Got a bit into what I was going to say, but basically, I feel like we should write down some explicit rules for how objections work. At the very least, any objection should be something that is votable. If we want to overrule this objection to say, yeah, no, we don't, as a larger group, consider this objection valid, there needs to be something for us to vote on. If someone's just objecting with no context, that's not helpful. Yeah. And anything that doesn't qualify for this set of rules should just automatically be disqualified.
I agree. Yes, sometimes it's also sometimes much easier. I mean, things like I don't like it, discard. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I do just want to quickly bring up a couple points back. There was a suggestion that we like have someone summarize it or something. This is like the third or fourth time we've had that as a thing that we've like not started but also tried to implement, and it has never worked. I think I remember the first time that happening being like 2018. So I'm not that it's a bad idea. I think it's actually a good idea. I just don't think like we have historically shown over and over that this is not going to happen. So maybe a different way we could do it is like some like emoji reactions on the comments to like from collaborators, and then that like edits the original post or something and just adds everything with like a stacked rank, like most reactions from collaborators like goes to the top as this is a thing that's important, but just some way that people can do it with a single click as they're engaging rather than like having to go through and read that 300 comments, because people aren't going to do that and then summarize it. It doesn't end up happening. So I would urge like us thinking about ways that we can all kind of like piecemeal collaborate on surfacing that information rather than having one person kind of summarize, because we've tried that before and it hasn't worked.
Okay. I think in general, saying that I don't understand this, so like I am blocking should not be okay, but I think there should be like some level of exception to that. Like if a subject matter expert is coming to a pull request and they don't understand the pull request, then I think it is fair for that subject matter expert to say, like, I maintain this. I don't understand what this is. Like, yeah, but like in a collaborative way of like, not just I'm blocking, but in a proactive way of like, I am soliciting, like, please help me understand this so that we can move this forward. But otherwise, like, I should be understanding this.
So just
I think in that, I was just going to say in that particular type of case, especially if the PR has other people that have signed off on it and would otherwise land before you had a chance to understand that context, then I think it absolutely 100% is a perfectly valid case to use the red X and say, wait, let's talk about this a little bit more. Please help me to understand what this is. But you need to be explicit about that. It can't just be block, no for now. It has to be, no, I need to, we need more discussion that, people have to be very clear about why they're putting that red X on there.
But just quickly, as we are on the topic, we will do the next one, the last one, sorry, and Ruben, Paul, any.
Yeah, I also want to wrap up because we're investing a lot of time here. like with the PRs, I believe that's actually not so much of an issue because I remember like I have at least probably discarded 10 blocks from people over time when I was pinging them and asking, hey, please give a reason why this thing is, or is this still a legit thing, block, and give a reason for it. If there is none until this date, and I will wait that time period, which is probably like 1 or 2 weeks, then I will dismiss it. That is a legit way of handling it. So this is one, and we have done that. So I believe this has to just be in our minds again a little bit stronger and to handle it this way. The other part, and because I believe there were like 3 different major things, the PRs were one. Second was with early voting. I believe like so far I heard no one speaking against it. So I believe we should give it a try. And my suggestion in this case is also to have like a representative from the TSC in case we have a feeling there is a major topic that's made more for the TSC as such. And just as a suggestion, yeah, that one person will look into it, invite people that are that they believe are also knowing about the topic, etc. They don't even have to be involved in the topic on their own, just, you know, being the responsible person. That would be the second part. Summarizing long discussions. I agree that an RFC is not possible. One idea I have about it, and that is like, I don't like a lot of AIs because they make things mostly like code. Yeah. So a lot of AI produces shitty code, but what they're really good in is summarizing.
Yes, yes, yes.
They don't mind if it's 1,000 comments.
Exactly.
It goes on and off. They'll know this.
Yeah. So summarize, yes, please. That's something we can use.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
think just a quick response to that, if we are doing that, make sure we're tagging people in like the summaries of their own responses, because if it is wrong, because like, I mean,
Oh, yeah,
like
they can
the
amend it.
outlines,
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
they're just wrong.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to base a approval off of a summary that is like inverted of what someone said.
Yeah.
And then something gets through that we
Yeah.
really should know.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
Very quickly, 2 things. Can you say that I'm worried about the length of the topic, the issues or other problems that may arise. And first of all, one AI was a very good solution. And the second one is that if we make sure that once an objection process starts, there is another deadline on the time, it will also solve the length of topic automatically, because of course people can respond for a certain period of time that should be reasonably short, say a week, say 2 weeks at most. At this point, how much time can people reply in a week if they have a social life? I have no idea, but I suppose not much. First, and whatever. I'm hoping for the best, you know. And so we jog very shortly. One thing that you say that an expert in some area can legitimately say, I don't understand it, so I block it, which is fine, but it should be phrased differently, because of course an expert in an area will block something that he doesn't understand, because he basically has an instinct that something is wrong, and in case you can just write out to say, I don't understand this, I have the fear that it might interfere with these other things.
Yeah.
Then the objection is absolutely legit, in my opinion. That's so that is legit, but it must be motivated.
Yeah, for sure.
Even not understanding, but motivated is totally acceptable to me.
I would expect it to be like quite rare.
So sometimes for lack of time, they just say, I don't understand it, explain it, and it's horrible to write out to a person a phrase like this. That's just a matter of phrasing, but it's legit objection.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
I can easily name like 5 or 10 cases where Mattel blocked something with like, I'm not sure why. Like,
You know, I know that.
It's like it was always afraid.
You get the politically correct review of Smart. I get the other one, so I see you. I totally see you.
Okay, just for this one, maybe what I can do, part of the next 10, I will just write what we said, or take also the note and stuff like that, and just propose a few plans. For example, there was Tierney's proposal to have the comment listed by number of interaction, let's say, based on that, and we can spin up something quite easily on saying, hey, this was a list of comment based on notification or on event. Then we can work on having an AI, smart AI stuff. No, like we can find a way, so I would just write a document to find like the idea, what we discussed, and if some people have more idea, and then some people can leave that or implement that or whatever they want.
Yeah, that says you can summarize on a comment on GitHub.
Yeah.
Say, upvote or downvote this comment, that is the final vote, that's it, no external to me,
Yeah,
pretty easy.
That's the main idea. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think we have 15 more minutes, just really quickly, on the second program, too many open PR, 500-ish. I don't have an exact proposal, but I know some specific project parts of Node.js are, for example, help and other stuff like that are by default PR that are considered stale. They get a message from a bot on a month, 2 months, or 3 months. I don't remember the delay. And then if there is no more interaction, they are closed. Do we want to have some kind of automatic closing pull requests that are considered stale?
Don't we already have that?
I don't know if we have that in the Node.js
I
repository.
think we have it for issues. I don't think we have it.
Yeah.
For pull requests.
Oh, that was for issues, the 6 month.
Yeah, I think it's issues. Yeah.
We can do for PR as well.
I think it's still.
No.
No. Do you think we have that for pull requests?
Definitely. That.
Who did it? Does anybody remember? Nice.
So maybe someone can check. And
I've seen- From what I remember, PRs can be marked stale, but they won't be automatically closed.
Okay. Okay.
Shall we automatically close them?
So we can.
So one thing about stale PRs is often, I would say at least 1/3 of them was actually a valuable contribution. They are just having like some minor things that weren't finished. And I'm also an alternative to just automatically close them, which is always a bad experience to the person who receives that, is how about we change our contribution guidelines to say, hey, it could be that we just go in and help you put this together pretty much and bring it to the finishing line to push it through.
Yeah. I think we can have the automation about that to detect which PR would be considered stale and work with a mentorship or something to have those one.
I like that idea.
Something.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think going back to some of the history on some of these, a lot of them are like legitimate bug fixes, and just automatically closing them tends to make it where we just miss those, the bugs continue, those issues aren't getting resolved. This has been a long running problem. So having some mechanism for not automatically closing those, but automating the, like, hey, this thing is stale, it needs to be moved forward. Can somebody please pick this up? I think it's a lot better approach.
Is that you? Node.js project.
Yes, sorry, using the time. I recently resurrected, I recently resurrected, request about, the certificate issue. I think it went, very, very smooth. You just like ping in the issue, see if they're still doing it. If they're not, you just pick it up, because if they're just like radio silence for 3 weeks, they're definitely not going to come back. I guess I am not really seeing the issue of like having open pull requests if people just ask, are you still working on it? Instead of just assuming that they are still working on it. Because I think a lot of communication problems that we have is coming from the fact that people just do not ask enough. There are a lot of times where you can just, we're a human, we can type, we can just ask.
Yeah, just wanted to mention, I noticed this last week that a bunch of the Code and Learn PRs from the last Cloud Summit, no copy you seem to have been dropped on the floor. A bunch of them are still just left open. We have the like code and learn things to like at conferences or like after Cloud. Like when we have Cloud Summits attached to a conference, we sometimes have the Code and Learn where we just teach people how to contribute. It's like an introduction to them. They open like a PR, usually like fix something in the docs or like fix some tests or something. And we get like a couple dozen PRs all at once. And the ones from the last one, we're basically left without getting reviewed.
from Dublin, we had this?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we find that? Maybe this is part of the problem of our 500 plus open.
They have a code and learn issue tag. So if you look at PR code and learn issue tag, there are 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, sweet.
So 4 open from November still. But yeah.
Okay.
In the past on these immediately, like for the week following the code and learn, the folks that have been active in running that code and learn have typically taken on the task of reviewing and landing all those. And in this case, it looks like that step was just missed. So.
Yep.
So one thing that happened during the Code and Learn in Dublin is that people were commenting on the PRs saying this doesn't look like a change that's worthy of happening, or this is too small a change, or this doesn't make sense to me. A lot of stuff that's very discouraging if you're making your first PR. That's just something I noticed when I was helping to mentor at that particular session. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, this is one of my frustrations, is that we seem like when I started with Node back in 2015, and I was told frequently that these changes were too small, we shouldn't do this. We were constantly turning away new contributors. And like even then we started a very coordinated process of making it sure it was known no change is too small, especially for a new contributor coming into the project. And I've been seeing this more and more, like over the past year, 2 years, where we have a lot more folks that are responding to these PRs like that, where it's like, no, this is too small. No, this is gonna be too hard to backport. No, we shouldn't, and it's just discouraging and just chases away new contributors.
Well, being difficult to backport, that sounds legit, but that sounds like something that you can do about it. Like you could probably break it up or something like that. I don't know what.
But it's not necessarily feedback you give to a brand new contributor who has no context on that.
Well, yeah, you should give them more information of like, this is going to be difficult to backport. Please do X, Y, and Z, so that they know what the heck to do. But I have a question about this is too small. What does it mean? Like, there's a pull request that like corrects a typo, and we're saying this is too small or something?
I mean, in the case of this particular session, and in most Code and Learn sessions, it's usually a very similar change happening in a lot of different files, usually test files, right? And if there's just so many of them, we will get comments saying this is just like the last 3 PRs I've seen. What the hell is going on, right? Because they don't realize there's a Code and Learn session going on. Sometimes there's bad communication around that, right? So that's one way that can manifest itself. I don't want to name names because there's people who tend to comment like this, but
I mean, is it like the person is submitting duplicate pull requests, or they're just like tidying up the same kinds of things?
some of these commenters won't necessarily even notice that they're coming from different people, or it won't matter to them. It's the fact that there's so many that are the same will be upsetting to these particular reviewers.
We're automatically creating the issues for people to solve, and then people don't understand that that's what's happening, so they're seeing the same issue or same resolution happen 15 times and are like, what's happening?
Well, there is a code and learn label. Surely people know what that means.
Yeah, but we have to remember to apply it, and the people opening the PRs can't apply that.
Would you like to
Typically,
comment
in the
there, Mike?
past, what we've done is we've had people at the Code and Learn mentors who, as they are opening, other people are actively tagging those, so people know, and that hasn't been happening on some of the more recent ones. We've had to tag them after the fact.
Or I wonder if someone is like seeing this in their email, and then if you open it on the mobile, I think it doesn't show you the labels unless you like specifically open that. So
Yeah, you typically have to scroll down to the bottom.
It sounds like
to
as
see the
part of
labels.
the code and learn workshop, people sending PR should be advised to put some big like boilerplate text at the top saying like, this is a code and learn session, I'm submitting this as part of, so that
Yeah.
make it so that it appears everywhere, emails, GitHub, whatever.
Yeah.
Not subject.
Cool. Next one for the small issue, cross-cutting concept that folks might not be as familiar with, like permission and snapshot. What do we want to fix
we do have documentation on Snapshot. So whenever, sometimes people are like, I don't know how to do this, so I'm just like, have you read the documentation?
Yeah.
Usually what happens is that they're like, oh, I haven't read the documentation. But it's in source readme, so maybe there's a better point. I guess that there's another issue of like, you need to know what to look before you can actually look at them. That kind of goes to all the parts of the code base. You don't necessarily know where these documents are.
Yes.
Even though source readme is like, whenever someone asks me, what document should I read if I want to contribute to Node, I was like, source readme.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you need to read. And there's like a contributing .nd. There's like basically a map of all the links that will lead you to all the links. And I think we don't advertise that enough. Something that we recently did, which spawned from a discussion on Blue Sky, where Patek, the maintainer of Feet, was kind of just commenting about it doesn't, well, I don't remember this reason, but it was not super clear. If you want to contribute to Node, where should you look at? Like, what should you look at? And the result of that was that we added something to the navigator bar of the website to contribute, then leads to the link to that GitHub document, which links to all the other documents. As far as I can tell, that should be fairly enough. Maybe what's been lacking is more some kind of like table of comments of all the technical documents inside the project, because even sometimes even I don't like, I know this document exists, I don't know where to find it. Even I sometimes have to either search for file, but I already know what I'm looking for. I know the keyword. Maybe there needs to be some kind of like site map of all these documents.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that could be something like great for people, even for us, being able to say, hey, I want to have more information about Snapshot. That's maybe the 3 main link, or not something necessarily fully extensive with all resources, but actually the main resources bringing you to be aware of, I don't know, how it's built, link to specify on how it was written, or actually link to the folder in the JS or some other stuff for people to be aware, not having to try to guess what would be the keyword for them to be able to find that, even from the documentation, stuff like that, especially for newcomer and other people.
I almost put this as one of my like frustration points. Yeah, it's sort of as you say, like, you know what you're looking for. So it's sort of like an Ile de Muerta situation. It can only be found by those who already know where it is. Like, so many times I'll be talking to Antoine, I'm like, God, I don't know how, like, what I'm supposed to do, blah, 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 blah. And then he sends me a link, and I'm like, damn, I need this. So, and it's like, it's almost like verbatim answering the question that I just asked for. And of course I looked for it, but I didn't find it. Maybe like markdown documents are not the answer. Like, maybe we need something that supports like tagging or like hashtag kind of stuff.
I have another, since we're talking about AI anyways.
No.
I mean, I think technically Copilot is something is supposed to answer you all this. Copilot, or it's supposed to answer, like, if the information is already in the code base, well, like, it's not even just like like hidden knowledge in the code. It's like already documented just in some markdown document inside the repository. But that also depends on whether you feel about these tools. But that's one way to.
Have you used it? Like, do we know that this stuff?
I do not actually use Copilot.
I could say we tried recently feeding some internal documentation for a platform into it, and it's pretty good at answering questions about that platform. So I bet that's not a unique experience.
I did the same with everything API governance related, or API specification, or even way of working internally. That's not perfect, but it gives you a good head start for people to be able to look at some stuff and find related information to that. So I don't know how it would look if we send it the full Node.js documentation or stuff like that. But something that would be, that is, for example, a bit more like API documentation standard for a company and stuff like that, it's doing a great work.
Okay, is this something that we can like provide so that not each one of us individually has to feed their own like Copilot thing.
I can answer to this. So as for like, yeah, on our website, we have the search engine that has AI capabilities. So we use Orama for the documentation on the website, which has AI, like it indexes all the files and provides AI. So this could be like just write it on the search bar of the documentation website or a part of the website, and it should be able to tell you the answer because it has indexed all the documentation and has an AI capabilities to answer this question.
Does it have access to the contributing documentation or just the API?
I don't know if we fell into the contributing part, but we could do that, and we have just one place where people can just like write their question about contributing, and the website would tell them that that's just the thing.
I was just going to add very quickly. Could be a fun project if people want to work on that, on creating a specific GPTs for activities that you can customize with your own set of document doc and stuff and just upload that. I don't know what would be the result. I don't know what would be the end goal, but that if some people have some free time.
Maybe we can open an issue, like an actionable item would be to open an issue on the Node.js org website to ask if it was possible to add the section for contributing, and then it would be much easier because we have the website.
We have what, 30 seconds left, I guess. We won't have time to go through all the other one, but I guess for the frustration, the first one would partially be solved with the voting part and everything. I'm guessing. The first one on frustration, that is about certain discussion, not possible to express clearly your opinion because there are some people who are very loud. Do you think it would solve partially the issue, not completely, but partially the issue with putting timeline or deadline on specific pull requests and stuff like that? Maybe it's not perfect, but I guess it would reduce the noise of those kind of people that are really vocal about the topic.
The big difference that if people they are loudy and try to stall the discussion, it requires for other people just post a comment and it will eventually be included in the final broadcast, and that's it. So it will basically should solve this vision by itself.
Okay, cool. Lack of quality debating. Oh, was someone talking? I'm hearing noise then. Last one, lack of quality debugging diagnostic tooling, identifying memory leak, for example, very hard. Assuming stack trace are another example where the tooling is weak. I do agree. Finding memory leak and low-level stuff is always hard. Would be great if we had a good way, but then we need to build a good way, or we don't. Okay. Just quickly, because you will put some stuff in the new collaborator, the top, let's say 3-1 are decision priorities on what area to begin contributing to, add most value, lack of visibility on nothing, what you got, what they contribute to. Second part, learn guide for becoming collaborator. We have great material using Node.js. We should do the same for contributor. And the third one, how do we convince company to the value of having their people put time into Node.js contribution? Just in 5 seconds on my side, at least, the second point about learning and creating material to contribute, that's a great point for my side. I think Raphael, I would say, is doing that by live streaming and doing a bit of collaborator way of contributing. I didn't watch all the streams, but that's a good way, but definitely having something a bit more about how can you contribute. And I think it's also piggyback to the first point on how someone joining a Node.js project find issue they may be able to work on. Could be, for example, we can use a stale pull request if we are automation to flag them as stale. Maybe we can say to people, hey, this is a list of pull requests that are stale. If you don't know how to start and you don't want to start from scratch, maybe you can just fix, I don't know, the last point that may be missing on the specific pull request or something like that. Maybe we can solve 2 different issues, almost same solution, with mentoring on top, so 3 even. One
I guess one technical point about that is if person A starts a PR and then person B comes along later and might pick it up because it's stale, like they're not going to be able to push commits to that PR, so they'd have to make a new PR.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, running over, but it's also fine to continue into the next session if people are up to
If
it.
people want to continue.
Well, actually, sorry, for your technical limitation, I think we can, like a collaborator can push to it.
if you have whatever right permission, you can push commit. You can usually push commits to other people's PRs. There was that checkbox, I think, when making PR.
Yeah.
That's why that's allowed that.
Yeah, and if someone has like, is not responding on the pull request, I think we can say after a certain amount of time that we can enable that checkbox if it's not already there.
But I don't think everyone can do that. Is it just people that have right access to the Node.js repository?
Or is it at the least you would need a person with permissions on the Node.js repo?
Yeah, but I'm saying like, we could say it's okay.
There might be a technical solution to it.
Yeah.
So there is a 12-minute, 15-minute break, or we can continue to discuss. Break?
Break.
In the break. Yeah, okay. With coffee and.
We can distribute the t-shirt.
Cool. Yeah. So, but only for people that are fixing a flaky CI.
Come to the front with your issue receipt in hand.
Please flag your stuff as. But CI.
I'm not sure how to post this, but
We make that.
we just classify them by size and you can just pick the one that you signed up for.
Somebody hold the t-shirt up to the camera so I can take a screenshot and then I'll get one.
Is that right? To check what size you asked?
This.
Very nice.
Yes, because when you submit the Google form, it sends you.
This one is allowed also.
Is that if you check a box, is it?
We allow?
I think it does it automatically. It's a fine- You have to uncheck it.
Ok, bella. A parte quelli di clients, la faccio una scrivere al tuo, la scrivo io a mano. For the submission you'll find. It's close size for you guys. Una seconda che come lo fa?
My coworkers are just like, as more and more people learn on it.
No, mi quello più.
Yeah, I think be more and more just like crazy things.
Vediamo questa applicazione quanto voglio sta roba però.
Sure.
Applicazioni.
I wish I'd seen more screenshots of the conversation.
C'è davvero per
We have.
non lo conosco il senso.
I'm PO now. He's changing
Whatever it
titles.
is.
One. What did he want?
Useful. I made some copy of a fun. Particularly funny stuff. People using what I'm doing.
In the box.
Oh, yeah. No,
I use this for install this if you care what sort of thing.
Ci ho messo 3 minuti a fare la documentazione, quindi.
I put the.
We're here, dude.
Yeah.
Is that why you took it as? Put on
Let's see the kid. I think this is the movie we didn't have. I was large and 4 meat, which we already saw. So hard that US cards.
And so sometimes I think before like maybe processes, so how like
So.
yeah,
It just generates.
Twitter thread.
Yeah, it's just
Stuff. I DM to like do.
But the, yeah.
It's all
Got that sort of-
yeah.
It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I should run the company like you do, like. Okay.
This one, yeah, large one,
You know.
medium one, and if you.
Sono livelli platformatic? Yeah. Tolimella nostra.
That's not even my product line. I don't deal with that.
That's one the other one is. Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. By the way, I grabbed one. And I was like, I did something and came back later in the evening and. Yeah. That's my main stuff. That was with the large. You're only in that one channel. You're missing out on some real content. Large, medium, forgot. I only think I did it once.
My deck on this.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, shit. You think we'll be looking at that every time.
Use also. I do like orange, but it's for playing for
Maybe that's an overhead. You can put it up, especially for big packages. Take money,
At least I have
whatever the package. But in this case, we have like barely used, like not.
Sort of.
Yeah,
so this one is large.
I hope to lose weight. Yes.
So, yeah, that's a good plan.
That's a good plan.
Picture better is that everything else.
Is EU large or US?
Oh.
Big problem.
Oh, yeah, that's. No, I'm a small
Eric's like the
US.
Yeah, that's why it's so chunky. This is the discrete.
Do you want to see the first? Yes. I cannot see it.
What's up?
Look at the pedal.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like it's a weird shape.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like that. It's all like
No, I cannot repeat.
I will send a picture. Anyway, I would not be saying, thank you. It's quite,
I didn't show that in the
fun, but.
just started. I got to just
I mean, someone else should have not, but whatever. What the hell?
I mean, it's mostly useful for the when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. This one. For your eyes, not for your weeks, anyway.
Be trying, but I think it'll.
You can just let it that's these are
I did, so I upgraded, I have a second Intel one originally, and now I've got an AMD one. The old Intel one will sell. Basically treats reports. They sell it in case you put it in, and so I put it running.
yeah. Cool, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are a bit overpriced, but I like the idea. I like the idea of I'm supporting a company that's not a problem. This is not CG, it doesn't matter. Work. Oh my god, yeah.
And you got like the physical
directly fireable.
Yeah.
Keyboards replaceable, any layout you want.
Nice.
Yeah, even get cool LED.
How good is it? Can I just try something you could like lock it and like try to like use the keyboard that's possible? Yeah, sure.
Lock it. I don't want to. Or open a text document.
It doesn't matter, it's just like try to fill
But
it.
then when I retype this, it's like with this one, there's quite a lot of flexion, but they provided a kit again if you want to fix it.
It's different for you?
Yeah, I mean it's a different model.
I had a X1 carbon before.
Yes.
Yeah, I have one. Yeah, I can. It's not that, but it's a bit flimsy. It makes feel the.
Yeah, this one will be rubbish, I think. It's got extra flexion there.
Yeah. It's very better than
It is.
You have to compromise with it. It sounds the speakers, but like it's again though, if you want something that's open and repairable and like good for the earth and stuff, like you got.
I think basically like you want to put more RAM.
Yeah, yeah, it's literally just normal RAM. Got 10 Gs to drop. Yeah. It is. It's very fast, but fundamentally it's just like it's not how the margins of the longevity of that because you can evaluate
Okay, but like in 5 years' time,
you can set your
like will you actually be able to meaningfully upgrade all
well, I mean, I feel like there's always a need for like a smooth gradient of various powered bits of computer, right?
All right.
It's
just nice to have the option.
I
did
something that picks your
less RAM.
Yeah, you can
building networks.
so it's just
What about the weight?
Oh, this one, bloody hell.
By the end of the day,
It's going to make both of your laptops. Well, that's now.
You going to the node.js conference?
Yeah, I was going
Eli, Ranger asked.
Yeah.
You know.
It's nice. That's pretty good. Especially when you need to bring two laptops, because you bring a company one and a personal one. It's kind of annoying having something so heavy.
Did you pay for your?
No, I wanted a Linux laptop. And I was one of the first trying to get one. And because it was during COVID, the supply chain was really bad.
Yeah.
I got some small discount I found out.
I think P50 or something. That's pretty crazy. Like, yeah. It's a kilogram piece of brick. And,
Just one command.
and it didn't fit.
You know,
I think
about Ryan's should be
Just-
percent like.
I think it's
or something.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
They wanted that.
Also good for, like if ever you have.
The new ones look really nice actually, but I don't think so. Like framework 30.
You can less fun.
I mean, the main reason for me is like having a laptop is actually like vaguely likely to work. Here took his fractional scaling VS Code constantly, so I have to use either 200% or 100%. It's I'm not even because it's like running about.
It's that you can I guess you could have
2.5K. I wouldn't say it's high DPI, but it's like nuts. And I think if you
I keep it
put
in
fractional scaling,
I guess it Nix could be the
it's a 7
Nix installed.
You'll notice because if you really look at it,
That's the only global thing.
you notice something
Yeah,
not
yeah.
right about it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like,
Red is
a lot of software is like.
Running into problems.
Well, they used to be. Maybe by now they've got APIs that allow apps to render dynamic resolution, but historically it was either like 1 pixel or 4 pixels and then scaled down.
Homebrew.
What are you running on that?
If I'm not
Share
Yes.
So
do you find fractional scaling works?
No, but because I'm using Regolith, which is time management. Everything else is got and I can.
My node really ends in me trying to get rid of the Ubuntu stuff and install them.
That's basically. I guess
would have been.
This joke where like.
Maybe you can fill it up to someone else.
The camera, like physical switch. Oh, I don't need it. I'm running. Yeah, actually.
Actually, that's true. I bet I'm putting my most work in.
Mine works. So I need the physical switch to finish moving stuff over because I think there's some stuff that's in.
Oh, how?
I usually.
Yeah, she just turned.
I don't know what it is.
The laptop 12.
Oh, there you go.
So that's like, yes.
Oh, what?
I mean, it's flippable and it's got a pen. Like, you don't have to the tablet space.
Like a phrase in it.
I can see myself having.
Yes. It seemed like
I would like.
this kind
I
of
would
always takes like the
I'll use like a Apple like trans.
like a laptop. can use a laptop, a cheap one, fine, but like have it, you want to use a cheap one. You decide to take one of one of them. For like, yeah. Well, no, yeah, they're not cheap.
Where did this come from? Like, you want to show?
It's not real. So
And I was also curious if it would subside. Different interests that have gone away, but this one is stuck.
They haven't actually got much in common with these two, like these. Some people got
invested.
Something to criticize that largely is just the ports that's probable. The keyboard in this thing.
What else do you want me to do?
No, it's clear.
I'll
Yeah, so the keyboard is
you said there's many pictures.
all three, so.
They're actually gonna get bored.
They're being anxious either, or
Just pictures.
I mean, you can swap around this and stuff.
No,
Yeah.
I think if I have time. I just want, I was so tired to walk around.
Yeah, usually just Fairphone who do like, you know, very equivalent things,
Yeah.
but they just seem. Also like, but what's just the point of Fairphone is not that it's easily, it doesn't have like any swappable stuff.
Interesting.
It's just that it's made fairly, but they've also got like replaceable batteries. Right, nice, and slightly more repair.
Okay, that's.
But yeah, like most of the time, the phone is
On the way back.
just dead, I'm not upgrading it anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking of looking at the Fairphone stuff, but then it's what Google bringing about the internal, like the end of iOS user for 10 years.
I didn't think about.
I think. I have another idea. As far as I can tell, that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna do it where it's just a post or part of it.
Certainly, you know, like excellent.
Wait, I got my girlfriend the Fairphone. Numbers XL. They're quite good. Not like. Huh? Just replaceable modular.
Certainly got replacement.
To show up.
I'll give you
Yeah, I don't think you can say for the.
Give my name.
Like every other one.
Yeah, everything else. I mean, stuff like that.
Is the battery the first?
I'm sure there will be lots of people, but at least we have room, we have time.
To be honest, two generations of AirPods Pro that. The charge, like not the battery, just let's see if it's a charge reliably. Like he's getting that one.
I think, lines from Jerry and his manager and so on.
You get what?
Everything again.
It's so good.
Walk the business.
And I'm not saying this is well.
Luck as such that I have got my, and it's actually like a really rare occasion that I have them open.
It's like one random person from Pfizer or something like.
Someone from like AstraZeneca or something. Yeah, that guy from something in London, and we're thinking about, well, you say issues, it's like Google our company not being by default tech company, but relying exclusively on tech. So that's one part. It's the longest one will ever take. So basically, we're talking about our own components like 12 hours. Everything good, I guess.
Yeah, like when we would merge the bigger one. Yeah, I afterwards. I did like what tech is that actually?
What are you talking about?
The binary size. It's when we would chip the.
Yes. Over a certain percentage of the previous one, it will fail.
Exactly, but when we merge it, will the build up?
Yeah, it should succeed.
They should succeed.
It's only the diff between what you.
Okay.
I know, the next obvious question is, does that make it over time get bigger and bigger?
Yes.
That's a whole.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, so yeah, but anyway.
You guys have to find an egregious case.
So I guess it's.
In a solution, right? That's the easiest thing to look for, right? So there we are.
Yeah. Okay, so we do merge for now, and making it smaller is more difficult.
Always.
Wait, why would making it smaller be more difficult?
Wish I could have brought someone with
Performance implications, like the size is reducing the performance about 25%.
Okay.
But now I.
That's why it's not shipped at the moment.
Even with default features?
Yes. I believe the default features they actually probably also like I would have expected if you have them on the binary size would
Someday.
change.
Oh, yes, sorry, sounds like.
Well, look, there's also, we haven't made this plans yet, but SWC, we don't necessarily have to have that. Spaces.
I've looked at it since like.
Why not? Though, because the bases are pretty big. I don't know. Well, I'll have to look at it.
Yeah,
But-
that's why I was like, hey, you know, if we split up and something packages where we say this is possible.
Yeah.
We have to do the optimization here. The rest we don't care. We just like for stuff.
I mean, there's a nice way for us to do that, yeah.
No, I'm not writing code. It's doing stupid comments.
Well, we should take a look at like the specific features.
Oh no.
Vai bravo. Già fa mandare internazionalmente, va.
Is cold storage. And Chenzhong is the facilitator.
Yeah.
So. That's right.
What are you talking?
Okay. But the best one was Matteo Kitchen. You are looking at it. Every time I'm going to show the pineapple you see it. Hey. Yeah, I think I'm going to start my presentation. Yes, because I can control my sprite, but. Don't worry.
Sherry, it's really not. Yeah, I'm probably done the store and I'm gonna be having all this for long.
Yeah, everyone's.
Oh,
sound, do you need to? Oh, okay.
But I guess you need to speak up for people in the front row or to hear.
We put like.
Oh, yeah, so if I speak in this volume, can you hear me? Yeah. Probably I can switch to a different position in this case.
You have one.
We do not, unfortunately.
We can lip read if you're at the front. Wait.
Yeah. This is the middle of the room.
Sorry?
Right, I mean, this position.
Yeah, or you can go to the middle of it.
Yeah, just come up to the front or like closer up if you can.
Jay, can you hear him from there?
Yes. Yeah, I think we can try.
Yeah.
Have the whole space.
Okay.
So, yeah, hello, I'm Chenzhong and I'm a maintainer of OpenTelemetry. And OpenTelemetry JavaScript SDK. And I am working at the Bloomberg. And yeah, that's pretty much my introduction. And yeah, let's get ahead. What we are going to do is going to bring asynchronous storage to the web and make it built into the language that is the ECMAScript. And the asynchronous storage is what being presented in this on the screen, which is a very big API that we can find. It shows that it's a unidirectional implicit comparing to a normal function parameters. That is to say you don't have to pass the value yourself. The runtime will help you to propagate the variable you set in the asynchronous storage, and you can fetch it directly from a asynchronous storage instance, and you don't have to pass it. And the mutation in the asynchronous storage is scoped into a async task, which is modeled in Node.js as async resource. That is to say, it will not propagate any mutations to the parent async resource. So any mutations will be only visible downstream the async task and the async chain. And the API, the API of async local storage is not a in-out parameter by nature. So even if we can set a mutable object in the as the async local storage value, but async local storage itself is a copy by value. So if we set a primitive in the async local storage, the mutations will not be visible in the parent async resource. So that's why we say that it's a local scope mutation. And we can find analogous APIs in other programming languages as well. And like async local in .NET or context for in Python and other language like Go or Ruby or Rust. Well, Rust is not building into the language, it's building into the async library like Tokyo and in Dart or Swift. So we can find that the similar semantics can be found in other programming languages as well. And these features are also adopted by observability tools like OpenTelemetry. And I'm presenting the, I'm not representing other APM vendors like Datadog. I just showing that these observability libraries are also using async local storage, and they are probably adopting OpenTelemetry's protocol. But yeah, I'm not representing them. I'm just showing that these are possible observability tools that is using async local storage. But today we are in the Datadog's office, so I'm not going to advertise other vendors or APM tools. So let's take Datadog's case viewer as an example here. That if we have a library that is going to make a sandwich and we scope it in a library function, like make a sandwich in this example, and the make sandwich can have a dependency that is used to get ingredients. And in this request handler at the bottom left, we are going to invoke this make sandwich library code. And if we use Datadog's official SDK to wrap all of these library function calls, Datadog will just visualize all these task hierarchies as just like a flame graph. So they are visualized in a hierarchical with parent, with the request handler as the root parent and the sandwich as the second child to as the child of the request handler, and we have a ingredient as the child of the sandwich. So this is pretty much very similar to what we might be familiar with CPU profiler, which is shown as in flame graph. But they are in different, probably in a different direction. The CPU profiler might show a flame graph that's in a bottom up flame, but the Datadog is showing it as a top-down flame graph, but that's pretty much similar. And if we make the previous callback or promise-based task function calls into a modern JavaScript async await based library codes, it will be much more similar to what our mental models will be about these tasks. Like we don't have
all of these callbacks. We don't have all of these promises. It's just that it shows the call order of our these library tasks, and we are utilizing the async await syntax in these examples. So this might be much more matching our meta models of how this chart task could be. And it could show us a more close to these frame graph tasks will be like. And this is not only Datadog is in the tracing things, but also available in other programming languages and OpenTelemetry. And in this example, we are using OpenTelemetry to chase a .NET .NET task that invokes several Redis database operations. And this OpenTelemetry example will be visualized in Jaggers Trace Viewer, which is an open source distributed tracing viewer. And we can find that it's pretty much similar to what Datadog's trace viewer that visualizing these database operations in a flame graph alike graph. So yeah, that's matching our meta model or how this graphs hierarchy could be like in our real world business applications. And what these observability tools are using asynchronous storage for. So asynchronous local storage allows these libraries to not intrude inside user code, and they can just monkey patch these libraries to insert this tracing span creation and tracing span attributes, and without user code being aware of this dirty works. So on the left-hand side, we are just showing a very simple user code could be like, and they are just invoke RPC like what they could do in real world. And on the right-hand side, the observability tools could instrument the web server entry point to start a root span. And on the bottom, the observability tools could instrument the RPC library with asynchronous storage to start a RPC tracing span. And well, this is a very basic illustration, and we are going to wrap it in a real world what the observability tools are doing. They are not exposing their asynchronous storage directly. Instead, they are wrapping asynchronous storage in their own library API calls. So it will be just like chaser dot start active span, which creates a span, and they will set that span as the active span in this callback and set the necessary attributes. So this is how basically this observability tools will instrument user codes with non-intrusive way to provide a overview of how our applications will be like in distributed tracing. And we also have JavaScript web frameworks that provides async log storage like Justify or Next.js, or even they are not only provide async local storage support, but they also could depend on async local storage to provide easier API use cases. We'll explore more later on. But what we have shown here is only for server-side frameworks. But what about web frameworks? Can we use it on the web? The answer is no, we don't have such support on the web. So if a web framework would like to use similar techniques, they have to either instruct users to transpile their user code into a pre-ECMAScript 2017 in order to patch promise to propagate the context, or they could provide a custom compiler, which are not standard, of course, to transform async await with their magic concept. Like this is an example of how Vue is transpiling their async await syntax into Vue specific async syntax support on the web. So you can find that some framework can do that, and some frameworks like the Lexi Angular might instruct you to transpile to pre-ECMAScript 2017. But yeah, all of these are not the standard way to do the async log storage on the web. And for observability tools, it is much more harder because we, as an APM, application performance monitor, we can't ask users to transpile to a very early version of ECMAScript. Otherwise we'll lose customers. Or nor can we ask users to use a non-standard compilers, because that's much more aggressive to ask users to use the non-standard compilers. So it's basically not possible for this observability tools to instrument a web applications like we do on Node.js. So that's the motivation of why we need the async log storage support on the web and to build the feature in the language. And luckily, we have the proposal async context in TC 39 process as a stage 2 proposal. And we are currently prioritizing to standardize the web API integrations, because web APIs provides a lot of async operations. And we also have async log storage snapshot in WinTCG as a minimum common API annex. Well, we call it annex because the minimum common API only includes web APIs, but async log storage is apparently not a web API, so we only include it in probably we'll call it in an annex. And why we include it in async log storage in WebTC, it's because not only Node.js provides this API, but also other server-side runtimes like Dino or Ban implements the async log storage as well. But this snapshotted version in WinTC is not the default version of async log storage. It's a it's a stable subset without like with, which is still an experimental API in Node.js. So it's not a full support in WinTC as well. So a quick look at the runtime adoptions. We have Dino support, and we have Dino and Ban with full support of async local storage, and we have Cloudflare workers with a limited support as defined in the WinTC minimum common API. And currently for web browsers, we have no support. So looking back at why we do the incorporation, and the first apparent reason is that the API will be universally available with all of these runtimes that we just mentioned. And more importantly, all of these runtimes will behave identically, rather than some runtime may only provide partial support, other runtime does not support. And so this could help these frameworks and libraries to work across runtimes without extra labor. And when we support this asynchronous storage in the language, we can also have it to support building syntaxes like generators and using declarations we'll mention later. So this could also address a issue in Node.js that why we don't have generator support for asynchronous storage. And another challenge that if we want to build this API into the web is that Node.js security model is different from the web security model. Node.js security model defines that we trust all code that you are going to evaluate, but the web is different. So the browser and the website and the loaded script don't trust each other. And if we want to propose a fundamental API like asynchronous storage, we have to verify that this new execution model change will not introduce any security issues to the web. So this is a new challenge that if we want to introduce such APIs into the web. And Buzz also has concerns that we need to prove to browsers that the implementation costs will need to be justified, that we are actually going to use the API after browsers implement them. So their effort will not be wasted. And we have also to improve the browser specification to address that these hundreds of web API change can be statically analyzed, and ideally statically analyzed like with web IDEO annotations, and allows code generation or test generations to verify these behaviors can be identical across like 3 major browser vendors, but like Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. So that's the browser's concerns that we are actively addressing. And to follow up, we have a new proposal, which we split it from the main proposal with to bring the using declaration support to async log storage. This depends on a stage 3 proposal, which is called explicit resource management, which introduced the using declarations to ECMAScript. So with this new syntax support, the async storage entries can be enhanced with a language building scope definition. So that the async storage entries can work well with event listeners. So we don't have to, and especially it can work well with the async functions, which we can find on the left-hand side of the example, that if we await before the first await in an async function, the function call is actually synchronous. So if we call async storage entries, the value is actually going to be leaked out to this async function scope. So with this new proposal, we can hopefully fix this issue with a proper syntax support. And this new proposal will also allow these tracing libraries like optometry to take advantage of the new syntax to use the new using declarations. Like we can call using span equals tracer dot start actual span, which can be much more intuitive to end users if we want to create our own spans. And it will definitely also work with async functions. And yeah, I think these sessions, we are calling for collaborations that please call out your use cases on asynchronous local storage on the web so that the process can be convinced that their cost on implementation will not be wasted. Once they implement the new proposal, there will be broad adoption of the API on the web, and like Datadog's case or OpenDMH's case, or these APM vendors will actually going adopt this proposal on the web. And we are also calling for collaborations on the HTML specification, because this will need to be specified that which web APIs are going to propagate the context and how their behaviors will be like. So yeah, that's pretty much all the sharing. Yeah, we can go to the queue if there's any question.
Yeah, so first of all, great stuff. Thank you for working on this. This is obviously very important to us in Bitcoin and elsewhere. What I'm curious about, you were talking about the web APIs and like which ones should propagate context. What's an example of one that would not or should not propagate context?
Well, I think the most obvious examples are like set timeout or set interval, or all of these APIs that we have in Node.js that are already propagating context should also propagate context on the web. So we should find out all of these APIs on the web that should propagate. And for web APIs that should not propagate, we have identified several APIs like performance observers, which are typically used as a global instance that does not make sense to propagate the context, because these observers are even though they are coded asynchronously, but they does not make sense to propagate a single context. They can be used for like coded by browser intermittently for performance entries. So yeah, they are distinguished between this API that should propagate and they should not propagate. And we should identify all of these APIs and to write it down into the web specification.
That's it.
That sounds good.
Okay, it's awesome.
It's not just about like defining what propagates and what's not, but also like a priority where it's more important to propagate. Because like if browsers come to us and tell us like, look, propagating all of these cases is too much work, we need to be able to like move the bar to like some other place and still like propagate in all the useful places and remove the less useful ones.
Makes sense.
I signaled this. I've signaled this the problem that I'm going to mention before, so that Sheldon is aware, but to bring everybody, the group is aware. the spec as it's currently standardized, being in the process of being standardized, do not have an equivalent of enter with. Okay, this is I think it's the enter with is essentially the escape hatch of everybody that is doing observability. Some APIs, some functions, some user pattern cannot be wrapped in a function. Okay, and in those cases, having enter with to mutate the current scope, okay, is essentially the easy way, is the out of jail card of Monopoly. Okay, everybody knows it's bad, but it's the escape hatch. Okay, it's everybody knows it's bad. I know I'm doing it wrong, but I have no other way of doing it, so I'm doing it in this way. Okay, and that is I think it's the problem of the spec as it is right now. And this specification, this is the explicit resource with the disposable support. It's going to, I think it's going to work, okay? But it's two different specs at the same time. I don't know if I understand correctly.
This is mostly because the async text main proposal does not depend on the, but it's in short, it's much like dependency between proposals, TCL and proposals. So we want to split this disposable support out into a new follow-up one, so that we can avoid the main proposal being blocked by this another dependency.
And this goes to my main concern is without the escape hatch, okay, of enter with, okay, we are at the risk. Well, there is the risk, okay, that then this new async local storage gets standardized. The escape hatch does not, as it happens with a lot of stage one proposals that they become derelict. And then we are basically at Node.js, there is something that is not equivalent to what the async local storage that we have, and they cannot easily be adopted by the community. We already seen that there is no, that a lot of, there is the amount of people still using the just async hooks directly is still massive in terms of download numbers and usage. And I'm not, I don't know, I feel it's potentially problematic if we want to say at a later future, we only have one of the two, okay? And we do not offer an enter with equivalent, okay? I feel that is the main, that is my main concern on this, on the proposal as it is right now. Apart from that, it's extremely good work.
Yeah, just a quick answer to that. I think we have already drafted the proposal and we are going to propose it to TCL now.
Okay.
And yeah, just a quick answer. It's already drafted and.
Oh, okay, it's drafted, it's something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did bring up earlier that using syntax is not actually a one-to-one replacement in that enter with you can use at the top level, mutate at the top level, but with using you can't because it'll. So say you have an ESM application, you have like two separate files. If you enter with in one, it's gonna move into any subsequent files. But because ESM, a module is wrapped in a promise, using is only going to exist for that file. So it lacks top level mutation.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, that's also applying to anyways, right?
No. Well, it works with CJS. ESM is a question. It's not consistent.
But well, I'm being confused because what you have seen is the CGS and ESM being different in the execution model. Well, CGS is synchronous and ESM is being asynchronous. And anyways, well, the disposable is just a syntax support around entries. So if you invoke the symbol method directly, it's just identical to entries, but that's not the intention because we want people to clean up the variable, just like the right-hand side example shows.
That's assuming that we can do that. I don't know where things ended up with explicit resource management, but there was discussion of like, oh, well, if you don't use the using thing, then that's wrong. So maybe we should stop people from doing that. If we do stop people from using the thing raw, then
there is no answer to that yet. Still, there is no answer to that yet. It's still one of the details that need to be defined.
Yeah. So if that does go in that direction, though, it means we can't use it in that way. So we would need another solution.
My answer to your question here is that in this proposal that we are going to submit is that invoke the symbol method directly is one of our motivation here, because for optometry, it is important for us to be able to invoke the symbol method here to implement optometry disposable spans, because that could be a great improvement to optometry's API service. So I think this is important for optometry to be able to invoke the symbol method directly.
Yeah, as long as we have some way that we can do that mutation. That's what we need. What has been presented of using spec, relying on using declarations doesn't work. Relying on the internals, maybe. Just a handout there.
Andrew is in the queue. Is Mateo has finished?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I wanted to can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to I guess piggyback on the previous question. Do we know how much code relies on this fact on enter with propagating across modules when using the top scope, and like how like is, even if there is this escape hatch, it would be better if it wasn't used. Do we know that it's used, and do we know that it will break users if that would not be possible?
Yes, there's something up on the screen right now, which we have a bunch of examples that we found that like CLS hooked has like 2 million weekly downloads and uses that extensively. The Datadog tracer is 3 million. It uses that extensively. The Nest CLS uses that. Microcar was the like ORM thing, uses that. There's a whole bunch of things that are using it quite a bit.
One thing to keep in mind with enter with, at least in some of the discussions I've had with folks around async context, is that like in workers and I've had some conversations with folks on browsers, going back to the question about whether or not async context introduces any new security concerns. Enter with was actually raised as one of those because of it allowing the current frame to be modified by something outside the current execution scope, something that's not visible to the current code running. So that's, you know, we definitely need to balance like what these modules need versus what the what gives this API the most chance of success in the committee. And we can't ignore that enter with and exit do present a higher security challenge here. So
One other thing that is different between enter with and the disposal proposal is the propagation between before the first await. If you call enter within on an async function before the first await, that will propagate to the caller of the function if it didn't use await. That would not be the case. Like we hope that that would not be the case with disposable. Like I think this was originally a proposal by Stephen. So I wonder how much we like. Do we know that this will not break users? Because like the hope is that this behavior would be fine. Like if we add some hooks, like something to the spec, so that this doesn't propagate outwards in that specific case. The hope is that that would not break current users of facing local storage. And since this is one other difference, well, I don't know if anyone has details on that, if anyone has done the analysis, but anyway, as with regards to Brian's question about web APIs that should not be propagated, it's so there is a difference between an API that takes a callback and schedules that callback. I think for all, so if it takes a callback and schedules it, that should be, in the context should be propagated along with the callback. For observers, there's the context at which you create the observer, but then there's the context at which the observations happen. And so in that sense, it would be better to do to bind, or well, in the async context proposal, it would be wrapping, but it's the same thing. The callback when passing it to the observer. But then there's events, which are a whole kind of worms. So there are some events for which, like if you, the simplest kind of example like to explain is kind of XHR, even though it's not in Node.js, is like call dot send, and that is the context that would be propagated to the load and ready state change and so on events. And that is one context that we are thinking of propagating, but there are a lot of others where there is, if there is an API that propagates it, it's a lot more indirect and not always so. If we're thinking about video elements, play and pause and so on events, they can be triggered from an API, but they can also be triggered from a user interaction, and they are deduplicated, they're debounced. So, and there are some more complex interactions. The thing is, it's very unlikely that we can satisfy all the constraints that the browsers that the browser making are placing on us, and because some want like there is some like there's no single bullet for every event, which means we would, if we want all events to propagate that could propagate, we would have to go through each of them individually and change the spec for each of them and change the code in all browsers for each of them. And and browser and spec maintainers think that that is not a solution that we should achieve, not something that we should do, especially because new events that will come up later on will have to figure out if async context applies, like if this context propagation applies to them. But doing something explicitly brings a lot of complexity in other ways. And like having something in the event loop that automatically propagates the context would be a lot more complicated in other ways. So it might be that we limit the propagation to a very specific subset of events. for which the context is clear and for which we know there is a clear use case, and that maybe could be added in the future, but it's like so that there is a very limited set that everyone can agree that is useful, and yeah, like there are a lot of simultaneous constraints on that. So that's more or less what we're thinking and where we're going with it.
Yeah, actually, kind of want to go back to what Mateo said a while ago. So if there is anything else on this specific topic, please go for me.
But I have a couple of responses to them. I'll try to be quick. That's what the comment from James on the security aspect. Like like part of the security model of async local storage is that you have this basically variable as a handle to whatever the thing is contained. And so by the action of sharing this variable, you are granting permission to access what's in this thing. I have considered the possibility before of splitting it. So like some languages have like a channel concept of like reader and writer sides. That might be a thing to consider in this sort of case if you want to share only the ability to read from this store and not the ability to write to this store. That might be a thing to consider, but having access to the thing at all is kind of the gate already. So personally, I don't really see much concern from a security standpoint. Like if there's a security issue, it's kind of on whoever made the thing and handed it over to something else, kind of on them.
Yeah,
and
it's just that we have to
yes and no.
prove that to process.
Sure. And the other note on the thing at the start of an async function, I won't really get so much into the flow through semantic stuff because that's a bunch of stuff, but I've encountered a few issues before of users would do the enter with like at the start of an async function, storing like a task or like a span or something like that representing that function. And if they do this at the start of the function, it leaks out, and that's like how they thought it was supposed to work. Like they set a thing in a function and anything that was following got that. And then they're confused when they try to do that again after an await and it doesn't do that anymore and they get the older value. That's like part of why I've kind of expressed that we need flow through semantics thing before. At the same time, I've got the reverse of like, sometimes, yeah, people do put this there and are confused that they get this out at all. But that's usually when they're like using promises and not async await. Which, yeah, in that case, it's a little more clear that the thing should be contained. Yeah.
On the point about the writer, I just want to respond. No, on the point about the like, possibly splitting the writing, that like the mutation of the variable from the reading of it. I think, I personally, in all the discussions that I've had with folks, that would actually solve it if you could selectively give the ability to write. That addresses that concern. So if something to consider.
I'm like, that seems a bit odd to me because you can explicitly give someone the ability to read from an async local storage or an async context variable by by basically giving them a callback that calls get store. But I guess like having something built into the language or the Node.js API, if like I guess that could help in the sense that it would be a lot clearer to users how to use it. Maybe like I'm not sure at this point how it interacts with the security concerns, but I will think through it. Yeah, in response to Stephen, like it's so you said that users were expecting the await like the enter with after the first await to behave in the same way as the enter with before, because they would and that's why you were advocating for flow through, but flow through you would not let you get that that context like from a synchronous caller after the function invocation. It would be like after you awaited. So it seems like to me like a very different case.
Well, to be a little more clear about that, like users are expecting the behavior to be consistent, but they're considering a function to be a container, and whatever happens in that container, like a call like returns values, and they oftentimes think of like this as not just an implicit passing of parameters, but also implicit returning of values. And so that they're expecting, okay, if I change this stuff in here, then like this will follow into like it. Like most people think of it as like as if they're writing to a global, but a global that is only available to some narrow scope. And so if you're writing to a global, you're going to assume this is going to still be available in any like subsequent execution, which is not the case if you only flow downwards, which is why I made flow through proposal before. But they are expecting the values to be contained. So when you call like an async function and like do the synchronous part, you don't await it right away. Like that shouldn't leak out, certainly, but it should flow out of the async side if you await it or attach a then continuation to it, because that's subsequent execution from the perspective of the execution model.
Okay, yeah, I have 3 things now. So the first one is, James, could you try increasing your mic's volume, please? It's very difficult to hear you from the room. Second thing, I forgot what it was. Third thing. So Matteo, a while ago mentioned migration, that like if the proposal only has run, then it would be impossible for node users to migrate from async local storage to async context, but just missing features. Do you think that like Node could maybe build async local storage on top of async context while still providing more utilities? Maybe similar to how like buffer in Node became a unit data array. Do you think async local storage could become an async context with like more Node things? Or do you see this as impossible? Like assuming we get the worst case scenario with just the .run and not with the follow-up proposal.
Like, no, like that's the problem. Like if depending on how it's implemented, okay, if there is an escape patch, have something like enter with, okay, and it's available through some, I don't know, V8 API, whatever, then not really, then that's fine, okay. If it's something that is essentially boxed and cannot be extended in that way, then no. Like, again, then if it can be extended via, like, if that functionality is available, but not part of the standard, that's fine, but it needs to be available underneath. If it's not available underneath, it's not, I see, like, I see a lot of, if you look at how the pattern of people using this kind of stuff before, the one that I mentioned rely on this working in this way, on being able to, you know, mutate the current scope. And that is my, and we have not seen them migrating long term. Now, so the question can be, well, whatever, we leave the old API there forever. And but you see where I'm going, okay? If we start removing stuff, we need to be able to provide a long-term path for that. And I currently am not. Like with the disposable thing, okay, I think it will be more or less possible, because, you know, using is literally just a syntax trigger. So you could technically have an enter with like behavior by, using the symbols. If you look at the essentially cheating completely, you call the symbols, you open the using, you never close it, and you're done. You will have the memory leak, you will have all the sorts of problems that using is preventing, but who cares? Okay. So again, but without that, it's you need essentially to have some support from the runtime, from V8, essentially, to say, this is the API that you can use to have enter with like behavior, and that's fine. And you can use it.
That
and
is
then
happening.
Add these other extensions. So
Matteo, that is definitely happening. Can you all hear me better now?
yes. Yes.
Okay. Hopefully this will work better. So async local storage right now, following some of the updates that Stephen did last year, is now using a mechanism in V8 for propagating this context, and that is the exact same mechanism that async context, the new API, would use, and in theory, we could actually keep async local storage there in place using the exact same mechanism, and these things should just work together. Now, even with this update, the way that it works, enter with still works, exit still works. It can still be implemented. The discussion at the language level is just whether enter with will be part of the async context API itself that's exposed to JavaScript. It doesn't really have a bearing on whether V8 continues to support this underlying mechanism or not. Those are two separate conversations. Long term, yes, it absolutely should be possible, because it already is happening, for async local storage and async context to share the same basic underlying implementation model. And for enter with to still be possible.
I want to clarify something, which is that it's so CPD, which is the behavior in which async local storage is currently built onto. It's more like we hope to build that on top of async context, because async CPD currently only allows you to store one value, and but yeah, it would be from the node side, it would be CPD would, anyway, you could implement enter with if we don't change the API. One thing is, once we implement the disposable proposal, then that might change, because the behavior of enter with before the first await on an async function might change depending on how exactly we implement it. The details are not clear to me at this point, but I guess we can talk this in the future to see how we do this, or whether Node.js needs to enable a V8 flag to avoid that while they're in a transition period, adopting async context or something. Yeah.
Right. For those that may not be aware, so this API, as Andrea mentioned, only stores a single value. So those of us that are using it, like in workers and in async local storage, we use that to basically store what is essentially a map, where each key on that map represents an async local storage variable. So that's what we use to do this. Now, the change that is potentially being looked at is, instead of V8 just storing a single value, it might expose the key value store directly, for lack of a better term, where we won't need to store the map. V8 will do that for us and separate those out. It will materially change how this stuff gets implemented, if that goes through.
So I guess you could build you could store a map in CPD, where CPD would be a value of the async context store, but that would be a map on top of a map. Yeah, it would be better for Node.js to directly use the underlying async context machinery, but it's not strictly necessary. But yeah, the change that that might actually affect this local storage is when we implement disposable, and that and that enter with before the first await might not actually work.
Yeah, so to reply to the question about the idea of re-implementing async local storage on top of async context, I would say like the only deal breaker right now would be the mutability question, which like there's part of an answer, but we don't have a full answer for that yet. If we can solve that, then we can have equivalency to what exists now. The flow through semantics, which I've proposed before, are a thing which Node does not currently do, but we've had a lot of users expecting it to work in this way. So like we can achieve bug for bug equivalency, but do we want to be better than that, or do we want to just repeat the same bugs forever? That's kind of why I've suggested the flow through semantic before. We had a discussion earlier about like the machinery internal to what has to happen to do either flow is actually basically identical. The only difference is like we capture when a resolve happens, we capture before and await, and we just pick which one when it comes out of the other side. So we can actually use like all of the same machinery. So it is actually entirely reasonable for us to support both flow models, but for the purposes of APMs, like APMs might not care to actually adopt async context until it does the like flow through thing, because like having equivalent capability to what they already have is not really a selling point. Having a thing that fixes their issues is.
Well, I have a quick answer to that.
If it's faster, maybe.
Well, or if it's more browsers.
Yeah.
That's.
Well, how much do APMs really care about browsers?
A lot. Like, let's ask another APM.
Yeah. They're starting to care more. Yeah. They haven't historically cared.
No, we did care in the beginning. We realized we couldn't because we didn't have basic local storage in the browser.
But like they're in a state at this point that honest do anything that
they can always next.
I remember what was the comment I forgot before. So when we look, I thought recently with like some frameworks, people like figure out how to use in the front end other than from tracing. And actually all the frameworks that currently transpile with all chose to go with the semantics that like jump across the await rather than jumping out of the await. Like there was Vite, there was Angular, and there was maybe Svelte or Solid, and it makes enough. So just in like for other use cases, actually it's the other flow that matters.
Yeah. In the browser, there's kind of been quite a bit of math, like kind of following the React model of that like component structure has sort of pushed everything in a more like functional, like going like flowing in a particular direction. So naturally context has followed that in those cases, whereas Node like historically has been more of a procedural and event-based thing. So it kind of needs a lot more of that linearity.
So a quick reply to your question, to your what you have been saying just now is that this is not just a map around React's concept. We also have the similar concepts in other languages, and OpenDimage provides the tracing abilities in these languages. So I would recommend that if we want a change in the tracing model, it would be better to introduce such ability in OpenDimage or similar tracing libraries first, so that we can convince browsers this is a worthwhile thing to do. But yeah, like I mentioned, this Node.js is not the only runtime that implements the async local storage API, but we also have the node.js APIs in our downtimes as well. So I would not say async storage is a bug behavior, but I mean, I would say that it matches what OpenMHA expects, and it's fair to say we have different use cases, but we also have use cases for async storage. So yeah, what I say that is that it's inaccurate to say async storage is a bug behavior.
I mean, there's been a lot of users that have complained about it flowing in a particular way that can be seen as subjective, but it is a bug to someone. Like it might not be a bug to you, but to someone else.
Yeah, it's fair.
That's why I was kind of suggesting, like, at the least, we should have two flows.
Yeah, that's fair. What I'm saying is that the two flows are not conflicting. They can coexist. And what we have been prioritizing is that we are going to prioritize the APIs that are universally presented in other languages as well and have been adopted in the community. So yeah, that's the point that why we are prioritizing to bring async storage to the web. But there are still design space to support another pattern of flow, but it's definitely possible. But like I said, we have to prove that it's going to be used by JSON library and it's going to be worthwhile to implement in the language. So yeah.
Yeah, the proof of value thing is the one thing that worries me about, like, if we go and implement this one particular model and then we go to the browsers and say, well, we also want this other thing that's slightly different, even if it's like we can reuse all the same machinery, just like we need to change these little parts. Like, are they going to be like, well, we already have this thing that looks almost the same. Why do you need this? Like, if we've already shipped this thing, it's going to be a lot harder for us to add to it then. Well, like, if we figure this out, while we're still in the process of trying to get this to delivered. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a question why we need a new flow. So that's a question to prove. To be proved.
There's technically ending, so if there are no more points. Okay, I guess we're done for day one.
Plans for dinner? So we still have this space as long as we need for today. We're also welcome to hang out downstairs in the cafeteria, probably more fun. But also, Jean, you have the Sanofi event as well?
I'm posting that on the. What time is that?
Yeah,
so basically, I will be there up to 9:30 or something like that, so up to that time.
What time does it start?